The Business of Kids Yoga, night 1 of 3.
The way we've been doing it?
I don't know, but for some reason, I've been having a weird thing with my Zoom. Hi, B. Good to see you. Can you hear us? Daisy, this is somebody that I talked on the phone today who's been using the, oh, here comes everybody.
And so I think I took this course, right?
You took it in the spring, yeah. So you're welcome to. Hi, everyone. And B, can you hear us? Oh, we can't hear, B, we can't hear you. I can see you.
She's muted.
You're muted, but when you unmute, I still couldn't hear you. You want to ask one of your kids? Hi, Katie and Stephanie.
Hi.
How are you?
Pretty good. How about you?
Okay.
Back in the swing of everything this week.
I
so
know, the school year.
Yeah. But
what can I do with it?
Oh, now I can hear you, B. Can you speak up? Wait, okay. Oh, actually, no, I can't. Hello?
How to fix it?
Can't tell if that's her. Stephanie, how's your school going?
It's going. It's going a little crazy. But you know, it's just a lot right now.
Yeah. Hi, Monica.
Yeah.
Becky. Hi, everyone. Oh, and I can see Becky. We've got a friend with us tonight named B and from the Chicago area, like Stacy, right? Aren't you in the Chicago area?
I am.
So B, Stacy's also in the Chicago area. So you two should get to know each other. She's been doing kids yoga for a couple years as well. So you guys could be friends once we get her microphone working.
Yeah.
You can, she can call in too. Okay, so welcome. So as everyone gets settled, I cannot believe this is the last course, the business course. And the point of this is not that you have to start your own business. It's just that you think expansively about your options. So that's the goal, is just to see the options. And in so doing, open up your mind and get really clear about what your goals are. So we'll learn about different ways to set goals. We'll hear about like all the different things I've done in like a little biography. And then we'll do some case studies and we'll have lots of time for questions. So I wanted to start by asking if anybody had any specific questions about like your plans or ideas moving forward that we could, I'm gonna open with any questions because I'm trying to see if we can gain any clarity for you guys throughout the next 3 nights. Does anybody have any questions? Stacy.
So if you wanted to, like, if I wanted to get my neighborhood kids together on a Zoom thing to do a class, how do I do that?
I think you start with like a head contact person. Usually there's like a neighbor who's in touch with everyone. And that person usually organizes everybody. And then like with neighborhoods, they often will just pay you like in Venmo or cash, or like everyone will write you a little check. So you don't have to have like an invoicing software or anything. So right now I have a neighborhood in Massachusetts that one of my teachers will be going out to teach. And the mom and I have been emailing and texting. And then she's getting organized all the other kids. So she'll send me the list of all the kids' names and emails so I can send them all the Zoom invites. So it's basically.
So you set up the Zoom yourself. You set the Zoom up?
Yep. You can set up a recurrent meeting.
You have a recurrent meeting?
Yep, and then you just email them the invite. So like when we did this course at the beginning, I sent everybody calendar invites. That's usually how I invite everybody that way, and I send an email. And in the calendar invite, I also set a reminder to go out the day before. One second. Okay. So yeah, I think with like neighborhoods, you should be somewhat informal. Like usually, like I said, cash or check. You can just send out Zoom invites. You can make a recurring meeting, and then I would say like it's somewhat formal in that like you should say like what to expect and maybe still provide policies. But I usually don't do like a contract like I would with a school. Hey, B, you want to try again and see if we can hear you? I can hear you.
Okay, sound good. Yes.
Yay! Awesome. So B's here from Chicago area, and everyone else here has been part of the 95-hour teacher training, and this is the like last course of the training. So what we're needing to learn about are all of the different ways we can possibly explore working in kids yoga. So as we go through, if there's things you're like, I would not want to do that, that's totally fine. I just want you to know what the options are. Like there's so many jobs outside of just the teaching the classes in a school or in or like at a YMCA. Like that's one thing you can do. And then there's a lot more. And we saw in the yoga in schools, like there's a lot just in there, but we can go way beyond that. There's a lot we can explore, different ways you can use your talents and creativity. So that's what this is all about. And I also want it to be about your goals. So B, I think you may have missed it, but I wanted to open up with questions, and Stacey had one about working with neighborhoods. I wanted to see if anybody else had other questions before we dive into the material.
Fresh water in the fridge. There's still fresh. Finish that there.
So as we go along, I would like to start out at a baseline, like everybody kind of sharing what their thoughts are, what you think you're going to be doing. And then I want, when you're finishing this class, to also see, has your idea changed, crystallized, right? Like, have you gotten clearer about what you already wanted to do, or maybe you got a new idea? And then I really, really encourage you to spend the time, we're gonna have a little time to create SMART goals. And that is a way to make a really measurable, attainable goal for yourself. And I'll even tell you about like the SMART goals I'm currently using in my own business as we go. So that's more or less the plan. If at any point you want to stop me and ask a question, please do. And for the video for this one, you can absolutely send me your pitch, like your idea. So last session in the spring, people sent really great videos about their hopes and dreams and plans. And some people sent like an elevator pitch, like what their business is all about. So remember, just because it's a business course doesn't mean you need to start your own business. It's just thinking about things in more of like an entrepreneurial way, like how you can look for different opportunities. So like, as always, take what works for you, throw out the things that you're not into, and really pull those things you like, and you can focus there, and that can help you expand your vision and get more clear about your plan. So I was hoping a couple people would share with us some of their specific goals around kids yoga. What is your vision, or where are you trying to go in the next couple years? Does anybody have a clear idea about that? It's okay.
I don't have a clear idea, but I have an idea, and I'm still working the courage to get there. So I'm still debating whether I'm going to hit up the girls' school to see if there's anything we can do together. I have the email like I sent to you. I just haven't had the chance to sit down and send it, and also introduce myself to the girls' dance school and see if there's anything we can do in collaboration. But I think given the whole COVID situation, I think I want to stick to doing the Zoom virtual reality thing. I just
Mhm.
realized that I've always worked several jobs, and commuting takes such a big part. And
Yeah.
I don't think I'm ready to start doing that again. I think I got used to just staying in one place, and it's my new norm. So I'm hoping to stick with that.
I totally understand that. Who was I think I was talking to one of you guys today about this. I don't even remember who, because I'm at that point of the academic year where everything is happening and my brain is mush. Anybody else have that brain mush happening right now? Yeah. So I love that. Well, just some of the stuff I'll respond to about what Monica said that I think is important to think about. Like, she's looking at relationships that already exist. Her daughter's dance school, where they know and trust her, and the school where her children go, where they know and trust her, and she's part of the community. So, like, anybody that's ever gotten a cold call, right? Somebody calls you and they're like, do you want to buy insurance? And you're like, you just want to hang up. That is not at all what this field is about. And actually, I went a year spending money just dropping it into ads to try to grow a fan base. Like, and I'll tell you, people don't spend money with my business that don't talk to me first. Like, maybe they'll buy a lesson plan, but what the heart of what I've learned through all these years that I've been doing this is it's all about the relationship. You don't have to build up a big fancy business. And I really made that mistake of spending a lot of time and energy and money on building up an enterprise, maybe beyond what I needed, because I wanted to like feel established, and I might put my standards a little higher than like I could afford to earn. So there are a lot of things I didn't do really perfectly. And what, like, the biggest thing I want you to take is it's mostly about who you know and like who you are. It's so much less about what you have or what you appear to have. So a lot of people are like, should I make a website? Do I need this, that? You'll figure out what you need to do, but typically you need less than you think. And let me just grab that. Do you guys remember, and B wasn't here, but so I'll pull it into here, but when we looked at the yoga in schools and I sent you Evan's white paper, it was a 1-page informational thing. That is like all you really need. Let me grab it right now. I'm going to pull it in here and grab the white paper for you guys. So you don't have to have, like, my website is crazy. It's got so much going on, you know? Here it is. Okay, I'm gonna upload this thing. So, you know, like my website, I have school programming and all this stuff, you know, like an e-commerce, and like, it takes a lot of upkeep and it costs a lot monthly to have a website. And like, so there's a lot of stuff you look at and you're like, oh, I want to be like that business. I want to be like this business. The most important thing is to do what you're good at with who you're relating to well, and to just have enough to show. Like, you all have curriculum from Flow and Grow that you can say, this is the curriculum I'm using, or you're developing your own lesson plans. You don't have to build anything for yourself unless that's absolutely what is driving you. So just remember not to get like stuck in the trap of like, I need to have this big fancy operation. You really don't. Okay, I'm going to pull the file in now. So right now I'm pulling into the chat box 2 things. First is Evan's white paper, which is a great example, and everyone can open it up. Can you see the things going in? Oh, I'm just set those to Monica by accident, not to everyone. Try that again. Okay. So here we go. I'm sending you Evan's white paper, and we're going to go over his business model later. And I'm sending over a flyer from myself. So if you have a flyer or a white paper and an email address, like, you don't have to have it all. I just want you to know that. Because I think some people might get intimidated to think to have a kids yoga business, you have to do the following. You look at the Instagrams, you're like, oh, they have 11,000 followers. Like, you don't have to have any of that. So we're going to focus on what you can build and like who you really are. So if you open the white paper, you'll see it's very basic information. It's just what they do, who he is, what they offer, what the contact is. So simple. And at the top is just his little logo. And then look, if you look at my flyer, it's a little more in depth, right? It's got, I can share. Do you guys want me to screen share? Okay, I'll do both on a screen share. Okay, so share. And this is Evan's white paper. Okay, so his little logo's here, right? It tells a little bit about him. All ages, life lessons, right? School, corporate, private. This is a chess company. It's not even yoga. How you reach him and free consult. Okay, so that's a very, very good white paper. The only thing you need is a little logo and a name, and it could even be like Miss Stacy's Yoga. Like it doesn't have to be like, I chose Flow and Grow because I really liked the name, but you don't even have to have like a legal business. And we'll go into some of the business models shortly.
What lesson was that in his white paper? What lesson?
It was in the yoga in schools.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's my flyer. And this one's more specific. This one's because remember, I'm an early childhood specialist. So this is a flyer specifically, here's my company, here's this, talking about daycares and preschool. So when we did the Mindful Beginnings course, we focus a lot on that. So you'll see, here's the business, here's my name and a little tiny bio about me. And here's about the programming, right? Age appropriate, cute little picture. And because I'm thinking about working with babies and toddlers and preschoolers, I give really specific details about what class will look like. Here's my cost and recommendation for how long classes should be. Here's a typical schedule, right? And then how you can support me. So these are my policies, but without saying policy, like you must, just let them know what I'm gonna need. And that's that. Here's my contact and website. So just like, you could just have that. You don't have to do everything. So if you're thinking, how do I branch out? A lot of people just simply make a Facebook page. You don't have to have a website. So we'll go into the whole thing, but I just wanted you to know, in case any of you were coming into this, like, I need to do what Laura did. You really don't. You truly don't. And the other thing is, like, so many people have made content and so many people have made different things that to do those things also should be because it's what you love and what you're good at and what you'll make money doing, but not just because you think it's what makes you relevant. Like, so all of us are looking for, what do I want to be doing with kids? And for some, it's like mainly going to be teaching and mainly teaching a certain grade or age or environment. And for others, it might be much broader because some of you are going to be excited about, like stories. And did I bring my book? On a break, I'll grab some of the books and things I've made. Last thing I'm going to show you is how simple my business card is. Can you see this? So here it is. It's just this little Flow and Grow Kids Yoga, my name and contact info. And the back is just the logo. It's really simple. And I carry these in my wallet. And so you can make business cards for $20. So those are things you can invest in. You do not have to build a website unless you're like planning on building a business and creating a business plan and like doing the whole thing. So nice to know that you don't have to do everything. And that like now we're going to look at like so I wanted to start tonight with what I have done because I thought it would be helpful to see like the progression I've done in this field. It doesn't mean it's the typical progression, but the goal of me sharing my yoga biography with you is for you to see like why you should never assume you know exactly what you'll be doing next. Lots of opportunities show up for you. And when those opportunities show up, you can say yes or no to them. So like there's so many types of jobs that I have tried within this field that I no longer do. I no longer do birthday parties, for example. It's just like a lot of energy and effort. And like Monica was reflecting, like, I don't want to be rushing around and doing a million emails and making goodie bags. Doesn't mean that's not a great thing for other people to do. It really is, especially if you love parties and music and making people feel special. So let's dive in then. So the manual begins with my story. It starts on page 3. So truly, I started this work in 2008 as a preschool teacher. I told you guys that I was just doing SEL and yoga in my class because I had been studying yoga, taking some trainings. I had been doing it for about 5 years. And that's how it started. And at the time, just to set the stage, because I know we're kind of in an economic crisis right now. And I'm sure a lot of you have that at the forefront of your mind. Raise your hand if you're thinking about that as an impact to your possible business expansion. And believe me, it is, it can be, but it doesn't mean you can't grow and find opportunity. So when I graduated from my undergrad, it was 2008. So if you remember, in the summer of 2008, we had an economic crash. And so I was coming out of college at that moment, and I remember feeling like a sense of doom. And I had sort of a random skill set. I had taught at daycares. I had a degree in Spanish and sociology. And like, you know, like I had no idea what I was going to do. So when I landed a job at a Spanish immersion preschool, I think I just kind of got lucky. And I also think I got lucky with the kids yoga thing because I was just putting together my skills. So as you go throughout this, like I'm thinking about Katie's got a special set of skills. She's got music and yoga. And so like your special set of skills, and like Stephanie's got, for example, reading and yoga. Like, so all of us have something about us, right? That, and like, you know, Monica's got social work. So like we all have, you know, Miss Stacy and I are both early childhood people. And so like, you know, all of us, Becky Nicole B, we all have something we've done before or that makes us who we are. Could be a language you know or a community you fit into that could make a really great opportunity. So I'm at the Spanish immersion school and I have a salary, but it's not really great money. So I'm feeling an economic pinch right away. And even though I was working full time, I was like babysitting on the side because like almost all teachers have a side hustle, right? Yeah. So, and at that time I was doing more yoga trainings and just recognizing how much it was transforming my life. So when I started doing yoga and social emotional learning in my classroom and got the opportunity to do it outside of in the other classrooms, I took it really seriously. So that's why when I tell you guys, like, make your lesson plans formal, like make them beautiful, like really focus on them. And then when you teach, like have already practiced what you're going to say and do so you feel more at ease, because the first impression is very important. Because if you went into a class and you couldn't really connect that day because you're in your head about the material, you could blow an opportunity that could last years. Some of my teaching positions have been 5 to 7 years long. Like I've been working with Stephanie's district. This is the 4th academic year or 5th, that I think 4th. So it's really important to make a positive impression. So oftentimes what that means is like you can't even bill for the amount of energy you're putting in, but you are building yourself up to who you're becoming. So I always think about it that way. I never put in minimal effort, especially on a first day. So I, you know, working at the school, I'm doing, you know, yoga in the class, and I learned a lot on that job that actually built into what would become my future business, because I was surrounded by mentorship. I was surrounded by other people teaching, and I sucked a lot in from that. So even if you're in a situation now where your current job isn't necessarily where you see yourself, sucking in all the lessons, sponging it in, getting a mentor, like that's why I also formatted this 95 the way I have, because the mentorship component where we're talking all the time, where I'm reviewing your videos, that is so important to have somebody to give you feedback. So even if your position right now isn't really exactly where you want it to be for your kids' yoga work, you're in a, like, you've been getting this ongoing feedback. And I think wherever you go next, if there's a way for you to continue to have feedback and like not necessarily a boss for oversight, but like somebody to let you know how you're doing. So I became a lead preschool teacher pretty quickly. I just had to take a few classes. And during that time, the first year was really a learning curve and I was kind of in survival mode. And the second year I really caught my I just got into the flow with it. In the third year, I was taking on a mentorship role where I was teaching other people and I was like, okay, I'm ready to expand. Like I really felt like I had gotten my fill from that place. And so when you're in this work, you'll often feel like a calling, like feel like I might be good at this, but I'm done with it. That there's something next. So I got that feeling in my third year of teaching. I was like, I'm ready to do the next thing because I'm already like guiding other people. And I didn't feel like I wanted to double down in early childhood and like become a director. Because the next thing after lead teacher is director. And that's like, you don't even get to hang out with the kids. So I knew that a change needed to happen. I was happiest teaching kids yoga. So back, excuse me, back then there was very little kids yoga. If you like think about 2011, which is when I quit my teaching job, can you remember there being kids yoga anywhere then? Can anybody think of any kids yoga 10 years ago? It barely existed. Katie, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, yeah, just like Mommy and Me at Bend and Bloom, right? But I don't remember there being like a child class. It was just the pregnant people's class. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and prenatal, and that like fourth trimester class, like with new babies, has been around, but there's very little kids yoga programming. And one of my teachers actually was one of the very, very, very first, and she's been doing yoga in the Boston area since 1992. And that's Tara Rachel Jones, who I've talked to you guys about before. There wasn't a lot. So when I came into this work, there were like 2 companies doing kids yoga in Boston. And one of them put up an ad on Craigslist. And I was like, kids yoga teacher, slam dunk, right? Because I had it was an early childhood yoga company called My First Yoga. And so what she did was really interesting. Abby lived in California, but had built a business in Boston around preschools and daycares in kids yoga. And when she left, she subcontracted. So she hired people like all of you guys to go in and teach kids yoga, but there were no certifications then. So like I did kids yoga because I was a teacher and because I was trained in yoga and how to practice. But the thing we all have now, like, didn't exist. I didn't even have my first kids yoga training till a year into doing that. So imagine like how different the landscape is now. So I worked for Abby for 3 years. And what I did for her was go to different schools every morning. And I would go for 2 to 3 hours and I would teach back to back to back toddler and preschool classes for her. And I was making, this was like back in 2012, 13, and 14, and I made $40 to $50 an hour back then. And that sounds like it's pretty good. But if you consider how much money you have to pay as a sole proprietor, or like if you are a subcontractor, you really need to make double the amount you think you need to make. So if you need $50 an hour to live, you need to charge 100, just so you know, like, because of all of the fees and expenses and traveling and arrangements and all of the things you can even imagine. So I was doing that with her. And simultaneously, I was doing a 200-hour training at a local yoga studio in Massachusetts. And when they found out I was doing kids yoga and asked me to start a program, there were no other kids yoga programs really happening. There was a little bit going on, but very few. Like you could not really find this programming in a lot of places. So I started Flow and Grow with a friend. And we did like an open house and we invited like all the kids in the community, and it started very slowly. So the first year we barely broke even, and I did it with a partner. So we split 50% with the studio and then shared the other 50%. So imagine if you have 3 kids coming in, how much money you're making. So what did I learn from that? You really have to have a minimum threshold, right? If you want to run a program and you need to eat, and this is your livelihood, you have to know what your minimum is if you're charging by head. And you guys know I don't really like that model. I don't like the pay per person model. But Teresa in my spring class, she has a partnership with a non-for-profit, and they're charging $4 per person, and she's making $120 per hour because it's big groups. So there are situations where a pay by person model will be really beneficial. But when you're building a business and don't have a lot, it's not great. So how did we grow the program? It was really relentless. Like, we just talked to, first of all, I worked at that yoga studio, so I was really well positioned. So when you think about business, it's all about who you know and how much they trust you and want to be around you. So I got most of the kids there because I was talking to anybody who would talk to me about the fact that I was going to be starting a kids program. Every time I taught an adult class, hey, do you know I'm doing this kids program? It was a lot of word of mouth. And like the studio would send an email here and there to their community, but it really has to be coming from you if it's a small new program. Now, if you have a partnership somewhere, that actually could be not true. Like if you're like, I know Bee's at a library, so they bring the kids come in because the library has programming and she's facilitating it. Like, so it's not always on you to fill the room, but if it is, you want it to be in a situation where you know the whole community. I want to tell you a little story about somebody who I coached who could not get her program off the ground, and why. So just like me, she had a local place ask her to do a kids yoga program when they found out she was a kids yoga teacher. And she was also an occupational therapist, so she's super qualified. And what happens to her is it's like one of these indoor play spaces. You know what I'm talking about, where like parents bring their kids that are like under 4 during the mornings. They couldn't get anyone to come. She had booked 2 classes back to back, and she got 1 person in each for the session. And I was like, you should never book 2 classes before you fill 1. That's like a big thing to know. Like, don't expect there to be so much demand. You respond to demand by adding more options. You don't start with that, because you don't want to give away your time to an empty room. It's very, very depleting to do that. And it can, if you've ever been, like, I know Becky, you're an adult teacher. If you ever have one person show up, doesn't it kind of make you feel like, oh my gosh, am I good enough?
Yeah, the first time that happened was like, so are we teaching like a private, or do you want me to teach like I teach the class? And they're like, a lot of times I've had people be like, I'm not comfortable staying, because maybe they're new to it too, especially as an adult. Like, it's a very vulnerable position. Kids, maybe they're not as aware of that.
They're just as creeped
they're
out.
like, it's all about me. Okay.
99% of kids don't want to be there with just 1 or 2 kids.
Yeah.
Most kids would
Changes
prefer
it.
there be, right, we want to have like the perfect amount where it's busy enough, but you're not overwhelmed, but it's unsafe.
Yeah.
There's this kind of like, like the Goldilocks zone.
Oh, yeah.
Like the earth is in the Goldilocks zone, so we have our, like, life. We want that for our programming. And if your classes are booming, that's when you add another time. So at Inner Strength Studios, what I ended up learning was that I was an excellent kids yoga teacher. And how did I learn that? The kids came back. The program grew. My confidence grew. And people came to me and said, we're so excited that you're doing this. Can you work at this school? We're so excited you're doing this. Can you train our teachers? We're so excited you're doing this. Can you host a training on how to do this? So all of the things that ended up coming from like that I have done since then were in response to the demand that was created because I was creating these strong relationships and putting a lot of energy and effort. So that first year, Jerry and I met every week for an hour over coffee, and we would plan our classes, and we planned 30 weeks of yoga together. I know that sounds like a lot, but it laid the foundation for a career for me. So if this is going to be, for some of you, it might not be a career. For some, it might be like a side thing. And for others, it might be a career. So the amount you invest in it should be kind of relative to that. So I was willing to put that time in, and I didn't have kids then. Right now I have a kid. So if I was going to spend an hour once a week on something, it better be really important. But back then, you know, it really depends on like what you have to give. So that's why, as like for those of you that are in the 95, I continue to say, like, write your lesson plans as if this is going to be your business. Write your lesson plans as if you could sell them, because these are all things that are possible. Okay, so at the preschool, I had a mentor. At the yoga studio, I had a mentor. His name was Roman, and he really gave me difficult, critical feedback. So at the same time that I was running the kids program, I was hired to be a vinyasa yoga teacher. It was a very exclusive studio, so I like really weaseled my way in. And do you know how I got that position? I was not the best. I was not the most fit. I did not have the best practice. Can anyone guess how I got that position?
Your relationship.
I showed up. It was a relationship, but I also, anytime they said, does anyone want to do this? I showed up. Hey, does anyone want to teach a free community class? I'm there. Hey, does anyone want to, you know, I fully invested my heart and soul and time, yes, into the relationship, but also it's about showing up. So if you've got like a school that kind of wants a program, but they're not sure about you, it's like show up and offer to do something, even if it's for free. Like Teresa last session did a bunch of free charity work for the sports teams. And now she's got thousands and thousands of dollars in contracts for showing up. It doesn't always start with a big contract. Becky, did you have a question, or you're just petting your hair?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm like,
I always pet
Yeah.
my hair too.
I'm like struggle bus this week, so it's all the self-soothing stuff. That's how like on any level, like when I taught at the gym, I was going in as a sub, and then one day the teacher didn't show up. I would never took the class there. I literally had just talked to them about being on their list, and they were like, hey, can you take this over? And I'm like, sure. Nervous as heck, because same thing. It was one of those. And then like couple months later, like someone just stopped showing up to teach a random class on a Wednesday. I'm like, can I teach yoga then? Like I literally, every time there was an opportunity, I'm like, well, I'll do that. And then built into like, to the point where I had 4 full classes regularly, and they felt like it was like a yoga studio to them. So they expected, it was just so funny because their attitude about it, usually you go into a gym or you go into a school or you go and you have like an expectation of, it'll be this. But if you show up and treat it like you're saying, like you do with the lesson plans, like if you treat that class like you are in a high-end studio or whatever it is for the kids, like a private, like they notice. And then like word of mouth, like you've said, like I've experienced it on that level. So it's like a good reminder that you can do that again in different areas. But it works. It's just about,
I mean, going above and beyond. The other thing is like, if somebody isn't sure, let them call you. Offer to talk to that person. I think that's another thing, like people, now that we have the internet and like social media, it's very hard to make personal connections, even though we are all like talking heads in space. And everybody that signs up for my courses, like I'm on the phone with them. And it's not because I want their money. It's because I want them to know I'm here and I'm qualified. And if they connect with me, they can trust me. And that there's this, I think I actually talked to every single one of you. I can't remember if I talked to Monica, but yeah, I did talk to her. Yeah, I've spoken to, did I talk to you, Monica? I did, yeah. And
we were
Katie,
talking back and forth via email, and I think we spoke via the phone also.
yeah. Well, and even if we didn't, I offered to. I know I did, because that is the above and beyond of somebody who's building something. And so like have a mentor, have someone you can say, you're messing up. Did you brush your hair? Like at Inner Strength, I didn't really agree with everything they did in terms of yoga and like the way they do the physical practice and stuff. I've really diverted. But what I really liked is they made a really predictable product. It wasn't so predictable that it was McDonald's level, but that's the same reason I have the methodology I use, because it's more or less a predictable format that's flexible. And so when you're predictable as well, it's this feeling like I know what I'm getting from you. And I think if you do want to pivot from something you've done before, it's in the marketing and then the description, especially if it's in the same building. Like I wanted to take my kids' classes and make them less game oriented and more like yoga philosophy oriented. And I did a bad job. That was my second year at Inner Strength doing that after school program. I did a bad job of explaining the pivot because I just called it kids yoga both years. But now, like, I try to give everything a really clear description. So some of the kids were like showing up to play. And of course, we did play, and you know how important play is. But I wanted to make a more substantive program. And so if you're like already have like a base of people, it's important that you're like letting them know how things will change. So at Inner Strength, I learned it's very important to have policies. And we've talked about policies in foundations and in the school class, and I'm talking about them again. Why do I keep bringing this up? First of all, policies help people respect you. They protect your bottom line. So your policy might be, if I don't get 5 in this class, we are not going to run it. Right? And Stacy asked about, okay, with neighborhood yoga. If she's going to charge per head, she should tell the parents we need at least 6 to run it. Can you get those kids? The parents are going to scramble to help you get those kids. And if they won't, that's probably not a great parent to work with, right? If you want to work with a neighborhood, you've got to get that parent that is the glue. You can't work with like an outsider parent, like an ancillary parent. It's got to be the center of the parent group, because otherwise we have to be the magnet, and that's very difficult to be in someone else's community. If it's your own community, like if you work at a yoga studio, like Becky's yoga studio sounds perfect, right? She's described her yoga studio as a place where anyone can do service. Everybody's service projects are respected. It's a real community. Everyone shows up to give, and they know each other and trust each other. She's got an environment where she could build something and people would just gravitate to her. But in most circumstances, you've got to either have a school where people are going to be there anyways, and they're going to promote your program, or a parent that's going to be like, I'm obsessed with this teacher. We've got to get this teacher for our kids. Or something like Bee's doing, where she's in the libraries, and the libraries put up the signs, and we got this free class, everybody come to it. So there has to be some way. You can't just like put a class in a dance studio and expect it to happen. It's really important that there's like somebody letting people know that's not just you if you're not really in the center of that community. So I'm thinking about Monica saying her daughter's dance company. That dance company has to be willing to put your information in their email letters, like every newsletter for like 2 months, and I'll post her on the wall. Like if they're not willing to do all of that, you can't run a program, because you can't teach to an empty room. And 2 11-year-olds are going to feel super awkward. They don't want you to do yoga with 2. They want 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? Whoops, sorry about that. So the other side of that is, so you need a minimum threshold. You need to know how you're going to get the kids there. You have to have a cap. So if you have a maximum, so like in my teacher trainings, my cap is 15. And you can imagine why, because think of like how many times we have questions and I'm emailing, and like if I had 17 or 18, I would truly lose it. So having a cap is a way to keep kids safe and a way to make sure your programming is good. And if you remember when we were talking about like development and like blanket inclusion, one of the reasons your policy and your like intake process is important is if you have a parent send you a child with a severe adaptation requirement that you can't do, and then you suddenly can't handle having 10 kids, you can only have 5, then you just lost 50% of your income. So that parent would be responsible for providing the support, not you. And so in my early days, I was so concerned with inclusion that I actually lost financial well-being. So how do we include without making it an issue? And so when I have somebody say, I have a kid who's nonverbal autistic, can he join your class? I say, yes, he can join our class at, hi Anna, he can join our class at the school, at the after school program for kids with autism, right? So he's going to the right place. And I'm giving like a little rundown of my kids yoga career, so we can like hear what all of the different types of opportunities are. And right now we're on page 4 in the manual. And in the chat box, there's 2 attachments. I'm not sure if you can see them because you just came in. Can you see them? Okay, I'm going to add them for you now. The attachments are 2 things that we've seen before. One is the white paper from Premier Chess. It's just an example of a really simple marketing. And the other one is my school programming flyer for early childhood. Okay, so yeah, so that's why we really need to create a specific policy and minimum thresholds and maximums too. Because like I actually had a program that was so wildly popular that I couldn't handle the dismissal. And I had a kid get dismissed with a babysitter, and then the parent came to pick up, and then the parent was like, where's my kid? And I was like, so it's very important for a healthy business not to have mistakes like that be possible. So how do we prevent those? And that's, we've got to have these caps, and we also have to have those policies. So like mine was, you cannot speak to me during the dismissal process. And so I know that feels weird because the parents come, they want to talk to you, but I would say stick around till everyone gets picked up or give me a call, because I would really want to make sure I can have my eyeballs on each kid and check them each off. So that was like a lesson learned the hard way. But when that happened, when that girl left with the wrong person, it took us like 20 or 30 minutes to locate her. And I lost half of the kids. I had 15 one week and 7 the next. So you really, really need to build trust and rapport above all else. And that's why like we keep talking about relationships, but that mistake I made, I was a young person. I was like 25, was a big deal. Oh my God, that was 10 years ago. Oh, I'm going to turn 35 in a month. Wow. I've been doing this for a while. So yeah, so I made this program at Inner Strength. Then the 3rd year, they had a second location and asked me, would you assign one of your teachers here and go to the second location? I thought, piece of cake. Do you know what happened? The entire program imploded. Why? The person who filled my shoes back in the original studio could not do it as well as me because I had not mentored her. And the second location was in the middle of a random highway where no kids were going to be. So I took an opportunity that ruined a very, very good thing. And I took on a responsibility that was a semester long that made no money. And I kept a program going with 1 kid. And I was so annoyed with myself because I didn't have the backbone to say, I'm not running this and I'm going back to the other place where I'm going to have a successful program. So I want you to know, you don't have to say yes. And you've got that inside belly feeling that's like, this is not me. You have to listen, because I ignored that feeling. I was like, I need to take this opportunity to grow my business, and it shrank it. Not every opportunity is yours. So timing and location are so important. You could have the best facility on the planet, but if it's not where the kids are going to be and the parents can easily get to, or if their kids are not already there, no point in even running it. That happened actually. So a gymnast, somebody who's doing the fall 95, I coached her for a year, and she took the intro course like a few years ago. So she's like very close to my heart. And she took on this opportunity that I was like, really didn't want her to take on, but sometimes we have to learn for ourselves. So what was the opportunity? It was like a gymnastics place, but they wanted to give her a really off time. It was like 1 p.m. on Saturdays. So who's going to bring their 5-year-old somewhere at 1 p.m. on Saturday? Because think about what Saturdays are like for families of multiple children. So she's like, I'm going to do it for the opportunity, not for the money. And she ran a class for 20 weeks. It was 2 10-week sessions. And she had 3 kids in it. So she gave up a whole day to make like no money. And for her, it was, I talked to her in the process and I said, are you meeting your minimum threshold? No. Is it convenient for you? No. But she needed the experience to feel ready to pursue other opportunities. So when we discussed it and I was advising her, and I, like, the part of me that wanted to protect her from my own mistakes, she's like, I understand why, like, the numbers matter and the like energy I'm putting in matters. But just like we talked about before, when you show up extra and do like a very good job, it made her feel prepared for the next thing that became a 2-year contract that would have kept on this year, but that school, like all schools, have lost all their money. So it's on pause. But it ended up becoming a 2-year contract for her, and it gave her a ton of confidence. So it's not black and white. Like, sometimes we know it might be kind of an awkward fit, but when you're new and you're trying to like get your feet wet, those opportunities, you can make those decisions, because even if it's not going to be super lucrative, if it's going to prepare you and get you confident. But like Becky and I said, like, when people didn't show up to our adult classes, or when we had 1 or 2, it made us feel awkward. Know what's going to make your self-esteem feel good or not. Because like, if you're running a class with 2 kids only, that doesn't feel good. It's also not going to build your confidence. So these are the types of decisions we have to make. Is it the money? Is it the experience? Like, all these factors go into it. Okay, so I start the program at Inner Strength. It kind of blows up, right? At the same time, I had still been working for My First Yoga all those years, for 3 years. And I was, teaching yoga in the community, and a couple things happened. I got invited to teach at schools. And so every afternoon I was either at my after school program at the yoga studio or at a different school. And every morning I was at a school. So I was fully booked. And so a lot of you have probably thought, well, I'll never have an employee or something. But so say like Anna, for sake of argument, Anna's a teacher, she's at a school, she can have an after school program. So say Anna starts a program and it gets wildly popular, because this has actually happened. I don't know if your school's big enough, but one of my groups, a principal and a teacher, came in. They said, we offered yoga. We thought we'd get 10. We got 85 signed up. They had 85 signed up. So they were unable to manage this with just the staff on hand. They had to hire. So you think, how could this ever happen? I would never need to hire. There's situations where you would. Or say Becky starts a program at her gym or her yoga studio, and it gets really popular. She's going to need a second person there to manage the class. It's much better to have 2 people and pay someone a little bit than to poorly manage something. Because yoga, unlike general ed, doesn't work as well in groups of 20 or 30. It just doesn't. It's much better in a group of 10 or 12. So if you get 20 to sign up, can you still make it work? Yes, but it might be worth the investment in getting a little bit of extra help, so that everybody feels like it's yoga and it's not you like behavior managing. Okay, so I am so busy, I start to subcontract. And so my school programs are growing and growing. And I hired this girl, and she would go to schools for me. You got to mentor the people you hire. Now, here's the thing. If you hire somebody just because they have the qualifications and an okay resume, but you don't help build them up and like show them who you are, it's just like a random person doing a job for you. And so that really felt wrong. After a little while of sending people to schools that I wasn't directly mentoring, because legally, if you have a subcontractor and they're not your employee, you can't train them. So I was following the word of the law. So why might people do that? And I think they do that just to grow a business. I know a lot of people who hire people as subcontractors but still train them. That's not legal, and you can. The state came after me for $80,000 last year because they thought I was doing illegal practices, but I wasn't, because I actually followed the word of the law. So the case was dropped. But like, states need money, so they'll go after anyone. So if they suspect you're not following the law, so it is important to know if you're going to hire people. If you hire somebody as a 1099 as a contractor, all you can do is assign them to jobs. And here's one little funny thing. So you can't give them a schedule, but the school requests a schedule and you can send them to that, right? So it's like a really funny thing, because if somebody's not your employee, you can't tell them when to work. But you can say, hey, I have this job at this time, and they choose to take it. So I know it's like, does not sound silly, but it is just the way the law works. So what did I learn from subcontracting in schools? You leave a really big footprint. So if you become someone's beloved teacher and then you leave and put someone else there, that person better be amazing. Their personality, their punctuality, right? All the things that you're going to bring to the table, because all of us are going to be on time. All of us are going to bring the energy, the love, the knowledge, the passion. You can't just plug somebody in that doesn't have that and expect the program to succeed. And so what is a problem in the kids yoga field is that it's hard to charge enough, to pay someone enough to be that enthusiastic about your company. So if you do grow, these are all things to keep in mind. Like, can you charge enough to pay someone a really fair wage that they're also willing to get excited? Because that person may represent you, especially if it's your business, or even if it's not like a formal business and you're just teaching somewhere and bring somebody in, it's your reputation and your relationship. So I would highly recommend, if you think like you're going to get, if you start to get a lot of opportunities and get busy, have somebody shadow you before the fact, right? Train somebody in an informal way that you can call on that person, somebody you see excited about this work. And adult yoga training is important, but it's not as important as like a truly passionate person about this work, right? So is it important if someone knows yoga? Because a lot of times people don't know any yoga and they're, I'm going to be a kid's yoga teacher. And sometimes those people are even better than adult yoga teachers who aren't willing to put in the love and effort and energy. So you might just be thinking, this is way beyond me. How am I ever going to get in that position? But when you grow your reputation in an area, you will get so busy so fast. It might take a year or 2 or 3. It could. Like in New York, it took me till my 3rd year here. And then I had Charlie. So now, like last year, I was peak busy. Peak. And now, of course, with COVID, I have like very few school contracts. But those will come back. And all the schools that have ever used me are reaching out and saying, we miss you and we're looking forward to a time you can come back. So it won't happen right away, but when you do a good job, your reputation will grow and the need for yoga will become more obvious. Like at Stephanie's school, like the kids are now excited about it, whereas before they were like, oh, I don't want to go. And how did your kids do this last couple of days? Were they resistant?
They were actually much better today, because I keep meaning to share this with you. I made up a PowerPoint using some of the yamas and niyamas with our character traits that we do. And we came up with a pose for each different character trait, like integrity is mountain and speaking with good purpose is warrior. I mean, just something different for each one. And even all the boys today were like, look at my warrior. I speak with good purpose. You know, I mean what I say, because we came up with a mantra for each one too.
Love that.
I know it. I'll email you the PowerPoint and stuff. So yeah, today they were really into it. I mean, even my one boy, well, can I share another thing really quick?
Yes, please.
5 hand. And I think it was Nicole who mentioned something of having them trace it like the star. So we traced our hand the other day, and then we colored it and we put a different positive word in each finger and taped it to their desk. And now they trace that hand.
Oh, I love that.
Hand. And they actually, even the boys who would not trace their hand, I saw this morning tracing their hand on their desk. So maybe it was a little not as obvious that they were doing it, I don't know, but that seemed to work out really well too. So yeah, yesterday and today was much better than Tuesday.
That's
So
great.
just like you said, it just let them alone and they'll just kind of come around. And a couple of them are really starting to come around. And it's only our second week. So
Yay. Well, I'll say this, third, fourth, fifth, like kind of upper elementary and early middle school has the most reticence and hesitance to start.
yeah.
But when that is overcome, they're like so excited to have, because they are full of anxiety and
Yeah.
energy.
Mhm. So they were very excited today. And they're like,
Yay.
can we do this? Can we do this? And it's like, okay, we're good. So
That's really great. So before I continue, because I obviously like have a lot to teach you from my own story. Does anybody have questions this far? I'm only in like 2014 right now. So we've got 60 more years to cover and then we'll do the case studies. Okay. So I'm doing the school programming. It's going really well where I'm teaching and where I'm like, some of the programs where I'm sending people are going well. And some are like, people will be late or like just not have enough energy. So this is hit or miss. And the schools that become the longest contracts are the ones with the best teaching, right? Like anyone where I taught, even if I was gone for like 3 years after, they held on to that because they were like, we know this is a great program. So finding good replacements if you do go is important because a program can fizzle and then the entire school can lose out on yoga and mindfulness, which is really sad. 2 years ago, I had a guy, great yoga teacher, going through like a personal crisis with like his life and his mom and all this stuff. He started missing work. I have never missed a job. Like that day when I was 1 minute late because I couldn't get my Zoom to log in, I had a full-blown panic. Like I am a person that is just, my integrity is so important to me. And I think a lot of you are that way, that we want to show up. You want to show up. You don't want to leave anyone hanging. You don't want to disappoint. And that's important to you. And like, I think all of you are that way, truly. So that's important. And if you ever have someone filling in for you, they have that, like, so now when I interview people to come on and work with me, that's a big thing is like, are you punctual? Are you showing up? Do you like, even people who don't do an amazing job right off the bat, if they're willing to show up. And I told you, why did I get my opportunity? Because I showed up. I showed up and I showed up and I showed up. So even people who are like, need a little bit extra coaching, if they show up, if they're punctual. Catherine from the spring cohort worked for me in Boston, and then she went to New York and worked for me in New York. She sprinted to locations to be on time. Like the girl is dedicated. She cares. And like, she didn't teach anything like me. She'd get to the site and they'd be like, oh, we were missing your style. And I'm like, but can you be open to hers too? So sometimes it does take us breaking the customers and clients become like very close friends and family. So their expectation of what yoga is becomes like what you offered. So it's really important to help them set up for a good expectation that, because Catherine's focus is dance. So her classes are very dance oriented. So I said, have fun having a dance yoga for a couple days and I'll see you when I get back from my conference, So I moved to New York in 2015. So that was 3 years after I started my program at Inner Strength in Watertown. And I had a whole bunch of schools that I kept with me in Massachusetts when I got to New York. So I still had school programming there. And I got to New York and I probably had a better resume in kids yoga than most people, because this was really when kids yoga came onto the map. Like it was like the second year of the kids yoga conference, right? It's like, it was now like an up and coming field. So by 2015, people know about kids yoga. There's many, many kids yoga training programs. And I have trouble getting work in kids yoga. I have like 2 or 3 contracts my first year. So I'm really only working like 6 or 8 hours a week. It was shocking to me because I was so busy. I was turning jobs away and subcontracting in Massachusetts, which is why I want to remind you how important your community is and how important your relationships are. And it's, having your 95-hour certification, having all that, that's very good. It qualifies you, but it doesn't get you in the door necessarily. Even like a few weeks ago, my friend said, and I wasn't going to do it, I was just curious. I wanted to see what the salary was. So I called this school to ask about a kids yoga position in the city. It was like a full-time salary position at a school. And I know I absolutely had to have the best resume. There's nobody else in the city that could have possibly, because I'm a children's yoga school. Like I know I have the most experience. It's very unlikely any other candidate could have possibly come close to what I had to offer. And they didn't even call me back for an interview because they probably just knew somebody and hired that person. So that's why relationships are so important. I wasn't banking on, I didn't need that job. This is my job, but I was curious about it, and the guy who screened the call was so impressed. He's like, I have never heard about any experience like this. It's so exciting to meet you. I didn't even hear back from the point person. So it matters so much more who you are to the point of contact. So we'll talk about that more when we get to like how we're going to leverage our connections, because that's the most important thing I want you to get from this is who are you, who do you know, and how can you leverage that? It's not about being the fanciest schmanciest. Like I built all of the Flow and Grow stuff at a financial deficit, and I'm going to take the next 5 or 6 years to start to like pay myself back on that. And I didn't realize that I was too big for my britches because my aspirations didn't match the opportunities. But like I chose to do that because I was building towards something, and not all of us should make those choices. Some of us need to make choices to earn money right now. And so like it's always a trade-off. All right, so I get to New York, I start to build programs. My very first program, I'm still at that school. We're still 6 years, this is my 6th year with them. So once you get your foot in the door, you can build something. And now like it used to be 1 day a week, and now it's 2 days a week. It used to be 1 group a day, now it's 2 groups a day. During the Zoom time, it's gonna be 1 group, but as soon as we go back live, I'm gonna have 4 groups a week. And I've been able to raise the price on that. I've been able to change the program description. I've really been able to make it my own. Why? Because of the trust we've built over the years. They totally trust me. They never expect me not to show up. You know how many after school professionals don't show up? A lot. It's a thing. It really is a thing. Anybody here work at a school where their after school people have not shown up before? Yeah. They just don't sometimes. So like showing up is so important. I've also had school programs pull out when I raised the price, right? I worked at a daycare from the moment I moved to New York as their preschool professional. And last year I raised my prices $5 an hour and they just canceled. Now, like I wasn't mad. Like I needed to earn more to go there, and they needed to pay less to have yoga. So I didn't take it personally. But if you do a good job and you build strong relationships and you can agree on a rate, relationships can last years and years and years. So one of the things I started before I got to New York was the weekend-long teacher training that Stephanie did in person. Did anyone else here? No. And Nicole did a variation of it last year. And so all of you did that as what we did as the foundations. So BU haven't taken foundations, but all the rest of you took foundations with me. That was a weekend-long teacher training that I started doing before I left Massachusetts. So it was probably 2013 or 2014, I led my first one. And I had been doing kids yoga full-time for only about 1.5 years at that point, but I did it full time. So I felt ready to do the training. Now, how did I end up coming up with all the content that I have now? My first training manual was 8 pages. 8 pages. So the foundations manual now is what, 77? And what I realized is I was just doing things I knew in my head for the trainees. And then they would email me like a month later and be like, what was that thing? So I ended up basically putting all those things onto paper and hiring Nafisa. So Nafisa came on and I basically gave her every dollar I earned when because I wasn't really working that much when I got to New York. And then I had Charlie, so I was not working. But I made the decision to invest in it because I think that this content will be flexible and I can make it into physical cards and I can license it. And I know there will be ways I can continue to like earn on it. So I made the content for trainings and I was doing trainings on the weekends like 4 times a year. So I would do like one a quarter in Massachusetts. And I used to have to like stalk people. My first training, I had to like chase down anyone I thought would talk to me because I didn't really have a business yet. But I was like, I really want to teach people how to teach kids yoga. One lady asked me to do the class. And so I was like, how do I need to, like, if I'm going to spend a whole weekend, I got to get people here. So teacher trainings is a really cool thing to do when you start to feel like you have a really good hold on on teaching. And it's something that can be really rewarding because once you get it down, people are going to watch you and they're going to be like, how are you making this look so easy? And that's when you're needed as a role model and as a teacher. So I started just doing those in Massachusetts, and then I got invited to Connecticut, and then I got invited to New Jersey. So teacher training weekends became a thing I was doing for many, many years. And this is how I started to recognize the importance of relationships too, because those people would always stay in touch with me. I'm in touch with like 70% of the people I've ever trained. And we only got to spend 2 days together. Now I really love the format where like we're online because we get many, many, many days together and we get to become a community. Because when I was trained in kids yoga, I was like on my own little island with no mentor, with no one to look up to. And now we're surrounded in kids yoga music videos, content, lesson plans, illustrations, Instagrams, the whole 9 yards. So you can look around and find a teacher really anywhere, where I didn't have that. But it's not just that you can look for a teacher, it's like having a community. Like we can all go to the Flow and Grow Facebook group and say, this is the problem I'm having. What would you do? And know you're in the safety and non-judgmental community of people that are like, I've got your back. And B, if you have Facebook, you're welcome to join the Facebook group. Is everybody here in the Facebook group? Hannah's in it.
I have paper group. Yeah.
You have Facebook?
Yes.
Okay, so will you friend me and then I'll add you to the group?
Yeah, I will after this.
Yeah, perfect.
After this, and then I will get on and see. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let's take a 5-minute break. It's 6. Let's come back at 6:20. And keep talking. And Monica, you don't have me. Will you add me, Monica? Okay, perfect. Okay, I'll see you all in a few minutes. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Just put. And this is, okay, so I posted in the Facebook, I'm in the chat, the Facebook group, and then I also put my Facebook page. So the first one is where we can all speak privately about teaching and keeping up with each other. And the second one is Flow and Grow's Facebook page. So if you haven't followed it, you can like it or whatever. Anna, before we start, or when we first started, before you got here, I asked everybody if they had any specific questions before we started the business class about their goals or anything. And I just wanted to offer you the same opportunity. Cool.
I think I've already told you kind of what my plan is.
Yep. Yeah, and I'll be interested to see, does that stay the same? Does it get clearer? Do you like make specific goals and go for those? So
I think this class or these next couple days will help a lot with that.
yeah, I'm hoping so. And if you take it seriously and really do your SMART goals, you don't have to exactly hit them. Like I made SMART goals for my fall course, which I don't think I'll hit, but at least it gave me a guideline for what I would like to be doing. And you can always readjust them down. But SMART goals is a way to actually be able to measure if you're like, first of all, like to think about what you would want, but then to see if you're actually anywhere close to that. Because like I talked about sort of inflating my business. Like I actually talked to my friend who's an investor today, who's going to do some investing for me. And he was saying like most companies, it's like a $20 million company and it costs them $20 million to operate. And like, cause I said like last year, the company cost 120,000 and brought in 120,000. And he's like, that's what most businesses do. And only the really good ones make money. Like, so it's really interesting that just because you grow doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make money. Like it's really related to charging more than it costs to operate. So as a starting out kids yoga teacher, after you've already invested in training, you don't need much. You can get a couple books, a breathing ball, a chime, you don't have to spend anything beyond that except for your time. And I think that that's the thing that we can all remember is you don't have to do everything. And I think I was highly influenced. So I'll get back to my story and I'll let you know like what I was highly influenced by and like kind of the inner pressure to keep up with the Joneses and how I don't even do that at all anymore. Like I actually was teaching for Mediteddy on Instagram and I stopped doing it because 25 other kids yoga teachers are doing it. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to be blending in. That's not who I am as a teacher. I'm a person that likes to stand out. So now it's easier for me to make decisions. But I think when you're new and you get opportunities, it's harder because you don't have as much, you may have experience in life and in jobs, but everything you do that's new, it's like you're kind of a freshman again. So Stacy's not a kids yoga freshman though. She's a junior. And Stephanie is not a freshman either. And Katie, you've actually been doing it too. And so is B. So, and I know a little bit Nicole. So like a lot of us have some experience, but anytime something's new, remember you're new and give yourself time. So to get back to where we were, I had moved to New York. I started to find relationships with schools, and I was doing a very good job at those schools. Like I had kind of burned out a bit in Massachusetts because I was teaching so much. But one of the benefits of teaching less in New York was that when I taught, I could do it with my whole heart and my body was energized. My mind was energized. I had ideas. There is a tipping point where you can do too much of something, which is why I really like the way my schedule is now, because I spend about 6 or 7 hours a week with you guys. I spend about 6 or 7 hours a week watching your videos. And then I do like other things in my business and I spend a little bit of time teaching kids. So I'm not doing 30 hours of kids yoga or something. So you have to remember like the amount is very important because it has to be sustainable for you. So I'm doing the trainings. I had a little website, not the one I have now. Before this website, I had a Squarespace website and it had a blog and I came out with my first products in 2015. I gave them away for free because I just did not, it's interesting. I think the way we value ourselves is an evolving thing. And I spent money with a designer to make the initial yoga card decks. And I gave them away for free for a year and a half. And then I had free ones on my blog and I tried to charge for some in my store and nobody bought the ones in my store. And it's like, duh, because they can just get something very similar for free on your blog. And I think it's because I rushed to get them out, and I knew there were like a couple mistakes in them, and like I just look back on that time, internal pressure to produce something that nobody else expected of me. And so I don't know if any of you are extremely high achievers or put like too much pressure on yourself to do things. You can create a plan and take your time. And that's what I really hope for you in this class. Because I put extreme pressure on myself to produce something quickly, I undermined my own value by feeling like I had to give it away because it wasn't perfect. I could have just not put it online at all and taken a year to make it its final. That's why I'm always talking about, look at it like it's your portfolio, put it in its final iteration. Because of the amount of times I put in an extreme amount of energy and money into something and then rushed it to the finish. So I think all of you will learn from me. Like, if you want to make something, take your time. Give it all the time it needs to be made, to be marketed, to tell everyone about it. Because if you make something and then just make something else, no one can even see it. They don't even know you came up with it. Like, I just did this. Ava wanted to help contribute on the game's lesson plan. And I know I'm in the middle of marketing my teacher training course. And so when I published it, only a few people bought it. Why? Because they can't keep up with all I'm doing so much. So another really important thing to do is focus on one thing at a time if you need people to see and hear about it. I still struggle with this to this day because I really, busy mind, busy body. I'm a very busy person. So that's that kind of like pitta vata in me. The kids yoga would work really well with a kapha, slow and steady person, as long as you had enough pitta fire to do a little. So I do need to call on some of those grounding properties because I'm just like burning. So your dosha can actually have a lot to do with how you do your business. And mine has been burning up for years. Okay, so I'm doing these teacher trainings, and at first they're hard to turn out. I'm getting, 5 people, 7 people. And then I think it was 2016. I had my old website. It wasn't amazing, but it was pretty good. I get asked to come to upstate New York, to Saratoga. I have a sold out training. I had to turn 3 people away, and I couldn't believe it. And I think the magic came because the studio that hosted me searched for me. The lady's like, I have been looking for you. Like, we resonated with each other. And then she had a vested interest in me doing well at her business, and it sold out. And that was a really great feeling, having my first training where I had a lot of people there and did a really good job. And to this day, of those 15 people, I speak to 9 or 10 all the time, like quarterly. Like, I am very in touch with those people. So just because you have a big group doesn't mean you can't make a big difference. And I get text messages from moms of kids that I taught yoga to in Massachusetts 7 years ago to this day. So that's how important the relationships really are. They're super enduring when you do a good job. Okay, so then I get to New York, right? I'm trying to figure out who I am. And I did something. I took an advanced anatomy teacher training, 2 95-hour kids yoga trainings, and I come out of them feeling confused, unsure what to do next, because I had felt like I knew so much about yoga and kids yoga, and then I suddenly felt like with the anatomy course, I realized like I was super humbled. And then with the both 95s, I didn't think either of them did a good job preparing me for working. And I had already been working and doing it my own way. So I had this like crisis of like, am I doing this right? Am I good enough? And today I spoke to one of my spring trainees who said like making the videos gave me self-esteem issues because I felt like I wasn't good enough on video. And I was like, I saw you as like an incredible teacher. And like, if you don't want to do all your videos, why don't you schedule a Zoom call with me and just tell me what you're up to? You know, we don't have to do everything one way. So that's why over and over again, I've told you, like, there is not one way, because I don't want you to look at the way I've done things as the way. Truly, you will find your sweet spot in this work, and it might take some trial and error. So your sweet spot's what feels good. It's what makes you money. It's what feels good. It's what's interesting to you. It's what makes you excited to go to work. Yeah, so finding that sweet spot. So I kind of had like a crisis after my second 200-hour training. I went to that ashram I told you guys about earlier in this course, and then went back to New York and was like, I shouldn't even be a kids yoga teacher. And you know why I said that? That teacher sang everything, and she told stories in a way I never could. And I felt like, well, I can't do it her way, so I must be bad at this. And this is simply not true. And like, I'm really glad I like had that crisis in my mind, but I gave it I said, I'm going to give it 6 months and see. And so I just went back to teaching in schools and doing the courses, and felt still like this is my work. So as you go on, there will be things that make you doubt yourself big time. Like if you have bad turnout or a group doesn't relate to you. I really think it's important not to give up too quickly when you have a discouraging situation or like a moment of self-doubt. Because I ended up coming out of that to where you see me now. And I'm very proud of what I've built since then. Since that moment, I've made every lesson plan. Everything that Nafisa's illustrated, I wrote for. Like I had all the curriculum. Every module of this course came from that, because I felt like I wanted to empower teachers. So even your most disempowering interaction in kids yoga can truly lead you into what your next biggest thing is and like who you're becoming. So one last thing I just wanted to share. In 2015, I went to the Children's Yoga Conference in Washington, D.C. And I saw what everybody in the field was doing. And like, it just threw me off to the point where I felt like I had to do what they were doing. And it took a while to get back on track and recognize, like, I'm going after someone else's company. I'm going after someone else's creation. All of you are going to be perfect at doing it your way. And so like, you can look to me as an example, as a mentor, as a role model, but you do not have to teach the way I do. You might find like big differences. And I really, like, I respect that deeply, that if you look at things differently, like, especially I'm thinking about people who have had prior training, like Stacy and Katie have done kids yoga courses before this, and they may take a lot from those that have shaped their foundation. Plus, how many of you are already teachers, or like, so whatever it is that makes you you, like, keep that at the heart of what you're doing, and take the lessons I give you and continue to just apply them for yourself. It doesn't mean you have to do it any certain way. So when you see people doing things and they make it look easy, also remember all the years that went into making that possible. So if your first couple classes are awkward, or like Anna had her like resistance class this week where her kids were like, we're not doing that. And so like, how many of you here that have taught classes had that moment when the kids were just like, no, I'm not going to do that? Who's had that? B, have you ever had that at the library in your classes?
Not really. I am just fortunate, very lucky. My program is very kind of super boom brain. Everyone very love the free school 3 and 6 year old. So I contract the library, you know, different 2-3 program at a time, and we always limit, like you say, the 10 and 12 kids, and the group is always side. A very happy, kids and the parent always join in. I allow the parent join in Georgia to feel a lot of connect there. And so far so good.
That's great.
I
How
love
did you end up getting into the library? How did that start?
I think the same thing you were said earlier. Everything is community. You need to build a lot of connections. So I live like Lorraine, Illinois. So the public community library is right at the corner of my house. The day one when I have my children, Emily was only 9 months. I always take her there. So all the people in library I know. And the person run the program for children. We have a lot of, like very friendly. I told her before I took the training, get the yoga teaching. She told me, when you done, would you like to come back here and, do the program with us? Then I told her I absolutely, love to do it. So when I finished, I come back and talk to her. She said, let's do summer program right away. And from there, I start out with her, and they, Motor Library, they always share the program to different locations. So, they have been, 6 different locations. They all know the program I have. And then,
Wow.
yes, from there, I don't have to promote the market. I just like, some they email me and say, I heard you do the program in library, Lorraine. Are you able to come up Lorraine Park and try to put the program here too? And I tell them, yes, I will. From there, we just keep expand, the market, it's just like work by mouth, so everybody talk. And they keep, recontract more time.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. And like, that's a great example of how you can take one contract and make it 5 or 6.
Yes.
That's exactly what Teresa did in the spring group with her Boys and Girls Club. But she had an in there. And she had one group, and now she has so many. And she's making a very good living. She paid back her investment in the course really quickly because of it. So Bees has to sign off. She'll be here for the next 2. But anyways, it's like we can really take a one-time thing and make it into a long-term thing. And just to get back to what I was saying, like making sure, like when you set your goals, but by the end of this course, you're going to set your specific SMART goals, that you're doing so in a way that honors your goals and your talents, and isn't too influenced by anybody else, not your teachers or what other people are doing, unless that influence is something you're looking up to and feel like fits you and suits you. And then of course emulate and go for it. But it's just about like making sure you're authentic to yourself, because I did it's like if me going to teach at a middle school, could I? Yes. Do I want to? Not really. Maybe if somebody said, I'll give you 30 grand to teach an hour a week or something, I'd be like, okay. But, like doing the thing that feels good.
Middle
And I
school
know
is at, Lara.
What's that, Katie?
Middle school is where it's at.
Yeah, but you're good at middle school.
Just humor and sarcasm go a long way, right?
I am too sensitive for sarcasm, so I don't do well in middle school. I noticed actually Stacy and I both hug the spectrum. We like the little kids, and then we start at teen. So we're both kind of skipping 11 and 12. I mean, I'll do it, but I'm gonna send them off to Stephanie and Katie.
I love that. I don't know. It's so weird. I love that age. Is that weird?
No, it's not.
I do too. So
It's so
It's very
horrible
fun.
for me personally. That's why I love it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to not make it so horrible for them, I guess. But I don't know. I just like they just are sassy and they're little punks.
They are sassy little punks. I would come from teaching in a preschool being like, I love you. And they're like, oh, we love you. And then I would get to the after school and they were like, I'm just too sensitive and sweet for that. I'd be like, you don't like me. It's not personal at that age, though. It's nothing to do with you. I mean, it can, but it was, yeah. So anyways, stay in your lane and take the role models and examples. So when we go through the case studies, I just wanted to show you like what other people have done in the field, but it doesn't mean you have to do that either. So from that point with like all the extra training I got and then had Charlie and really like, it wasn't really worth it for me her first year and a half to send her to daycare and do this work. So that's where I started to like sit down and write the content. So sometimes when your normal workflow is disrupted, like COVID, those can be great opportunities to launch into your next period. I know Monica's doing that big time. You're like, I'm so done with what I'm doing. I used my daughter's birth and then COVID as major launching points for myself because my regular schedule was disrupted, but I didn't leave the field. I just took a pivot. So 2016 to 2020, everything changed. I built an e-commerce website. I took Nafisa from 10 hours a week to 25, and I built all of the stuff that you guys got with the lesson plans and, you know, the things that people see online. And I made several books. I did like so much content, and I realized that the content could create courses. So it's like I kind of built the courses around the content. I built the content around what the kids needed. And so it all kind of like happened organically, but I had to make a big adjustment to the way I used to live. Because remember, I used to teach every morning, every afternoon, and then I was doing, you know, so you can't do it all. So like, we've got to just pick out our goals. And that's why it's so important for us to make goals so we know how we want to spend our time and energy. Especially those of you with full-time jobs, you may only get, you know, 4 to 5 hours a week to work on this at a stretch, you know, so getting really clear about what you're going to do with that. So now that COVID's happened, you know, Monica was saying, oh, I don't want to commute. I'm realizing all of those weekend trainings I did took me away from my family. So even though I really liked the connection I made with those people and I'm like driving 4 hours on a Friday, staying in a random hotel, you know, and if it's a great yoga studio or a great community, they're going to help me market. But a lot of times I'm just running ads and then I end up eating half the money that I made. So I realized in the last couple of years, like this has been kind of a miracle because Anna and I never would have been able to study together. She's in Wyoming, right? Like the only two in here I probably would have, well, you know, Stephanie, because I still go to Massachusetts, I would not have seen Stacy. Monica and Katie are in New York. I could have potentially seen them, but Nicole, she lives way up in New Hampshire. We tried to book a course there before the pandemic, and only one person had signed up even when the pandemic hit, Brittany, who was in the spring course. So it is very difficult to, because my community doesn't exist in all of those places. So in order to put together a robust training in any of those places would be really difficult. But I can do that, you know, with the website I've built and the following I've built, just enough to be happy now. And I realized I cut a little of my extra expenses and I'm making a salary. And I was like, oh, I could have been making a salary for 2 years if I just cut a little bit and was slightly less ambitious. So the funny part is I was coaching for those 2 years and I was making SMART goals with all of my coaching clients that would come on and want to start a kids yoga business. And I didn't do it for myself. After I stopped working with my coach, I didn't do it for myself because it's so easy to just go into autopilot. And for me, it's that pitta, create. So we all need to come off our autopilot way of being, our autopilot mind, and truly make our intention into our SMART goals and go for those and like go after them. And if you're short on your goal and you don't make it, no big deal. At least you went for something specific and it's not so ethereal and like, what am I doing here? So, Yeah, so like and a couple other things I did, I built a portal a few years ago so people could buy my like could pay a certain amount per month and access all the content. Um, I took it down because the content became worth like thousands of dollars and people were paying me, you know, $50 and downloading everything and canceling after a month. And I was like, okay, so obviously I need to do this differently. But there's lots of different ways, and I'm still looking at like I can license that stuff. So there's still different ways I can look at what I've built, the assets I've built. Um, so that's more or less my yoga biography. And in that time, I've worked in over 50 schools. I've led professional development for hundreds of teachers. I've taught thousands of children, and I've been in like 8 states and Ontario. So it's been quite a ride. Um, and I still, even after all that, if you ask me like what's my favorite thing, it's teaching teachers and teaching early childhood. Like not much has changed. It's just that I've refined how I do those things and I have a real vision now. So that's my story. I don't know if anybody has questions about mine before we do some of the case studies. Anybody hear something that they're like, there's no way I'm going to do that? What are the things there's no way you're going to do?
I don't think I'm going to quit my job to become a full-time kids yoga teacher. So if I can finagle it into schools a little bit, and maybe when I retire, which not unfortunately, isn't going to be too far off in the future. So hopefully something could still work it out then. So
that's actually very smart. Anna has it on the nose. If you have a salary and you can put kids yoga as something you're doing additionally, it puts you in a really good position. Because if you just go after kids yoga as your 100% job, it's really difficult to do, because I talked about how long it takes to build the relationships and to expand the contracts. When we talk about Premier Chess, we'll look at ways that you can do it rapidly, but I don't think any of you are like Evan that are just going to want to like send out mass amounts of emails. So Anna's got a really good idea. And then the other thing she said is her retirement career could be kids yoga. So many people are now coming to me. The fall cohort's going to be like full of retirees or budding retirees, and they want kids yoga to just be the thing they do after their big job is done, but they still want to be working with kids. So it's a really great point to make. Just because you have a skill set doesn't mean you have to give up your full career. You can integrate that.
Because it is harder though, like when you don't have kids in the district and your kids are not young and taking like dance classes and gymnastics, it is harder to find the young clientele. Like for me, working at the preschool where they let me teach the yoga was key, and then and I think I'm not going to be teaching there until the spring again because of COVID. I'm just really not comfortable doing that, which is why I'm working on my neighborhood stuff, and I'm trying to figure out how else I'm going to, make some money doing the yoga. But I don't have like a following of young kids, and my friends don't have grandchildren yet. So I'm kind of like very uneasy right now as to what I'm going to do.
Well, what I would say to you is, and I 100% understand your feeling and like why you would feel that way. It can be stressful, but you do have quite an opportunity when you're thinking about your neighborhood group. If you get that group to commit to something ongoing, those kids are all in schools, all of those parents. So you need to have like a texting relationship with them. Because I think text is the really most natural way to talk to a parent in your neighborhood, and get that parent to introduce you to the principal via email, not via text, but texting relationship, because that's natural for a mom or a parent, and to get them to introduce you. So you have to look at that neighborhood as your gateway. The neighborhood group I did in Weston, Massachusetts for 3 years continues to get me jobs to this day, because those 8 parents knew me for years. I saw them every Friday for like 50% of the year for an hour, and I would be with their kids, and then we would hang out, and they would be eating snacks, and I would just chill with them after and talk, and they still refer me clients to this day. So it is really worth your while schmoozing a little with these people, sending them thank you cards, and in the thank you card letting them know I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and also was wondering, can you introduce me? I don't really have kids in the right age group. I need help getting introduced to the schools. But you do have something there in the neighborhood. And I empathize with that too, because when I got here, I didn't have a kid yet. No one in New York that I was friends with had kids. And it was really hard for me to get into schools, despite the fact that I had a website and a logo and the whole thing and the resume and the teacher training and it didn't matter. So leveraging those contacts, and then yeah, I think, and the other thing is, and Ava's going to come on next week and talk about this, but one thing Stacy's going to do for us, and you'd all be invited to, and Anna's submitted a video that's really good. I have a relationship with KidPass, which is an online, it's like a thing that parents pay a membership for, and they get credits and they can attend classes. And the classes can be online or in person. And so we've started a library of pre-recorded classes. And so you can submit videos that Ava's going to come on and talk to you guys next call about what the videos must be. But if you've trained with me, you're welcome to submit videos for it. And basically, a parent pays $5, Flow and Grow gets 4, and you get 3 of that, you'd be able to submit that. So if you make a video once and it takes you half an hour, like Ava's made already like $700 in 3 months because she made 15 videos. So if somebody likes her video, and then they do all of her other videos, but like something like that, you wouldn't want to just make one, because then if someone does your one video, they can't watch your other videos. So you'd want to make a bunch, and there are a bunch of standards and guidelines we have, because we got good reviews and bad reviews, and it's basically the methodology, which is lucky. It's the Flow and Grow methodology, but it's a nice way to make a residual income. And you can also put your videos up, Stacey. They're yours. I don't own them. So you can make a Teachers Pay Teachers, and you can get people to buy them there for a license. So a Teachers Pay Teachers account is a place you can upload lesson plans, and people can pay you for the stuff you're, like, I'm thinking about Anna, who makes these slideshows. Upload that stuff to Teachers Pay Teachers. Someone will give you $5 for it. I'm serious. Wouldn't that be nice to make $5 for that? And if that happens, my first year on Teachers Pay Teachers, I made like $20, and the next year I made like $200, and now I make like $150 a month on there, and I don't do anything. My stuff just sits there. So, and the longer you're on, the more likes you get, the more, you know what I mean? So, with the KidPass, like I said, Ava, who's in charge of that for me, will come on and tell you guys all about it. I think it's Tuesday at 7, she's going to join us. But you'd all be welcome to do that. And it's a nice way to make residual income, and you keep the rights to your videos, but we just add them to our library. And you'd also be welcome to do live classes on KidPass, but you don't know who's going to show up. You don't know if you're going to get a bunch of kids. So it would only be time that you already had to offer. Otherwise, I think just recording is a really nice thing, because you have it forever. You can use that video for other purposes and hopefully make some money back on it. Other things you would not want to do that you heard? And then what would you want to do? What are the things that you were like, oh, that's something I could see myself doing? I know Stacy had shared that you were interested in leading trainings at some point, right? If you, is your 200 a Yoga Alliance class? 200?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you have a 200 by Yoga Alliance and you become an experienced in RCYT, and then you have register with Yoga Alliance for this course, you can actually lead trainings for me. Like you guys could work with me. I've never let anyone lead a training for me before, but like now that I have these like long ongoing relationships, these are things that are possible, like that I could have people working with me in that capacity. But it would take, in order to become a teacher trainer under the like, I mean, people make trainings that don't have this, but traditionally you would need to have a 200 to have taught enough classes that you could get the experience level and then to be registered. Becky, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just because a friend of mine had just went through this with creating a 200-hour. Did Yoga Alliance change it that you have to have one of the creators or leads has to be a 500-hour, or is that just for 200 and above? Do you know?
So that's
Because
a good
they
question.
like I think there was because they were asking me about what my level of like whatever hours with Yoga Alliance, because I don't know when the cutoff was, but it was something about like it
Yeah,
used to
so
be.
if you want to start a new school and you want to
Uh-huh.
lead a 200, 80% of it has to be led by someone with a 500 ERYT.
Okay.
And I actually told you I technically could have gotten a 500 based on my training, but I
Right.
didn't do it during the window.
Right.
But if you already have a yoga school and you've been leading it, they would not take that away. They would just, because you'd be grandfathered in as a trainer. So,
Right.
but if you want to join a yoga school and teach an adult yoga training, a 200 or above, you have to have a 500, or you can only do a certain number of hours. And then if you want to do a children's, if you want to become a children's yoga school, you have to have the ERYT. Right now it's 200, but they might change it to 500. They're contemplating that. I don't think they will because they're going to lose people.
Yeah.
Because I don't need to take another 300-hour course to be qualified. Like I'm
Right.
very qualified to do this. I even said that I've been in the calls with their, I've been trying to get them to do a roundtable or discussion table based on this, because I don't think that would improve the field. I think to improve kids yoga, we need more things like this where we're all talking about it and just talking about what works and what doesn't, and less of that. But to become a registered children's yoga school, you have to have the 200 ERYT. So you have to have the experience level, and then you can apply to become a yoga school. Or if you have your ERYT and your RCYT, you could work under an umbrella of like an organization like mine. And if you don't have the ERYT, you can only teach like a certain number of hours. Like I could have somebody guest lecture, I think 5 hours if they don't have, it might have been 10. So they do have some standards. That's a good question, actually. And for those of you thinking about, like as a business opportunity, you want to register, when you're done with this course, you have to have also taught 12 hours of kids classes to register. So you can upload your certificate, and then you have to verify that you've taught classes. But that's very easy to do. Nobody needs, like I said at the beginning, you do not need to register. And the only reason I became a registered children's yoga school is because it sounds important. But I was just as good of a teacher before, I swear. And I think I went through the hoops because I thought it would attract more business. But if you're not planning to become a yoga school, you don't need to do that. You don't have to spend $85 a year. And as a yoga school, you spend a lot more than that. But as an individual, it's $85 a year to be in the Yoga Alliance directory. But now that I am a yoga school, it's finally paid for itself because Carrie Bixler, you guys all met her, she found this course through Yoga Alliance. So her registration covered the entire investment I've ever made. So now I've broken even with Yoga Alliance.
For the ERYT, how many hours of experience is that? Do they consider?
It's a lot. I don't know off the top of my head. I think hundreds, or it's a lot. Do you remember, Becky?
No, I remember like as having this discussion, I was like, I would love to teach or like have an opportunity, but I would never want to create or be in that role. because I've done a lot of training. Like you said, my experience surpasses my like legal Yoga Alliance certified or whatever it is. And
It's 500 hours. I just checked to become
500, right?
To
Yeah.
become a
Yeah.
200, you need to have taught 500 hours, and to become a 500, you need to have taught 2,000 hours. I taught that in a few years because I was teaching around the clock.
Yeah.
So they're also like, I think a lot of people fudge their information because there's no way for the Yoga Alliance to check and verify if your information is true. I don't lie because it's a skill set I lack. But if I could have,
I'm the same way.
it is a skill set. To be able to lie is a skill set. Monica, I think a lot of yoga people don't know how to lie. We're like all terrible at it.
So
But,
would I be considered an RYT or an ERYT?
You should go online and put your hours in from teaching and see what it says.
Okay.
I think you have to register as an RYT first, and then you put your hours in. But I got mine I went from RYT to ERYT really quickly just because I was teaching like 7 or 8 vinyasa classes a week. And it was just like, it went really fast.
Okay.
What's the difference? What's the difference between RYT and ERYT?
Well, E means experienced.
Okay.
RYT means registered yoga teacher. So anyone who takes this course will be a certified children's yoga teacher, but you can become a registered children's yoga teacher by going through that process. Anybody who takes like yoga, so Anna, your course, which I did look up, it seems nice. I looked it up the day we spoke. I forgot to get back to you, but it seems nice, and it seems like the testimonials are strong, but you'll know when you get there. And so you'll come out of that with a 200, and you'll be able to register for that and this. And because you're teaching already, you'll be able to become an RCYT very quickly, as soon as your 200 is done. And then to become an ERCYT, you'd have to teach basically 500 classes. So if you're doing 1 a week, it could take you 10 years. But if you're doing 3 a week, it could be quicker. But like for somebody like me and Becky, where that was our primary job, it was really quick for us to do that because teaching yoga was what I did all day, every day.
Yeah.
What I'm not clear about is if teaching kids would count towards your adult hours. Do you know that, Becky? Monica, do you know?
No, I don't, because this is my
That's
first like.
Yes,
dive
I had
into
looked it up and we could use them.
You can use them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would assume that way, but not the other.
Yeah, I think that's
You
true.
know?
You can use because actually now whenever I log my hours, it never asks me if I'm teaching kids or adults. It just logs the hours. So keeping track of so if you're going to go down that like professional yoga route, it's good to continuously input your information into the Yoga Alliance system, because once I had to remember a whole year.
I went on and printed like this, I don't know how, I guess like the Mind Body, and looked back like classes I took, because like, at some point you have to take X amount of
Right.
classes and then teach. And I was like, I printed out and I was like, and it was like from 3 different places trying to get like, it's crazy.
Well, and the other thing is, the last thing I'll say about Yoga Alliance, if you want to keep your registration open, you must complete 30 hours of contact training every 3 years. So if you took like a 200 or 500, like, how do I say this? If you took this course to register as a children's yoga teacher, you can't also use that for contact hours towards your adult thing. It has to be separate. But if you didn't use this to register, you could use this as your contact hours, because I'm also a provider. So there's a thing called YACEP, which anybody who's an experienced yoga teacher can become, who is a Yoga Alliance teacher. And it's Yoga Alliance Continuing Ed Provider. So I've been that for 7 years, probably. I've been a yoga teacher I've probably been that for 6 years, because I've been teaching actively since 2012, adult yoga. So
What was that? What is that? YACEP.
YACEP.
A lot of times that'll go towards like if you're a trainer too, like personal trainer
Right.
under certain umbrella, like NASM, ISSA, like a couple of the nationally recognized, just like Yoga Alliance, like you have that, your yoga, this could go towards that. And just if any of you are in that world also and curious.
Exactly. So yeah, it is a funny system because, and like I said, I have said a little bit about this, but one of my difficulties with yoga, and like I personally read all the books, I was completely immersed in the studies for so many years that I feel like I have an advantage that a lot of people don't have who took a 200 and expected to get like a college level experience. But if you think about it, one master's level class is 90 hours. So this would count as one master's level class. So if you only do 200, you're not getting a whole degree, you're getting 2 classes. Think about that in terms of hours. So, and the other problem with the yoga framework is there's no like 101, 201. You know how like in college, like things are really scaffolded? That is missing. So we talked a bit about this with Stacy's training. She wasn't prepared to teach poses. My training was extremely academically rigorous, but there was nobody academic in the teaching community. So we're reading extremely thick and dense scripture on our own, like basically, so they're not, this is the industry we're in, right? So the things you all go out and do matter a lot because we're trying to bring the excellence up. We're hoping that there's a kids yoga degree, that there's a yoga degree available at the higher education level, whether it's bachelor's or above, because people are making a complete career and we need them to have we need them to have that rigor. So I attempted to give you some of it, but I am a very flexible person. So not all of you have got it at the same level because I'm like, sure, it's okay. But I really, truly recommend you read the books again from this course that I gave you. The manuals will help you in 6 months or a year when you're really working hard, but maybe your energy's low or your passion's wavering, because it's like, that's why all of those books I reread 2 and 3 and 4 times in my yoga studies really helped and shaped me. And not just the things I gave you. If you find other outside books, I didn't want to ask you guys to make extra investments, but there is a lot of great stuff. I think Stacy showed us about 100 books that we can all get. And in all of the books I gave you that I wrote, I always recommended outside reading. So you can continue to build yourself in those ways. All right, so we got past my biography. And a couple things I think I failed to say that I want to make sure I say. Co-teaching and shadowing are your best friend when you're new. We all have Zoom now, so you want to watch Miss Stephanie teach? See if she'll let you come into her Zoom call, right? Like, I know because we're all kind of far away. I mean, me, Katie, and Monica could potentially see each other because but Becky, where do you live? I forget.
I missed you. I'm like right outside of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Like inside. Like.
So actually, we can hang out. Yeah, it's not so far.
Uh-huh.
We could
like
be
I was thinking, wherever you were in the Poconos, I'm like, I wonder, like, probably not too far. Like that's where we used to do our summer stuff too.
Cool.
And then I actually Google mapped Nicole because I was going to go do a training at her library. It's I think it was 8 hours. It's an 8-hour drive. So I was like, I'm going to do this because I really love Nicole and she and I have been friends for so long. And I was like, I'm just going to do this because the flights were wild too. I just, so I'm very grateful she was able to be here, but it's hilarious how far away she is. And you think New Hampshire's not that far from New York, but she's pretty far up there. So I bet it's about 20 degrees cooler where she is right now. So, other things, build your email list. Build your email list, right? Because if you're going to do something, who are you going to tell about it? It doesn't have to be in a spammy way. Like, your email list can just be any of the parents that would be interested and any of the teachers that would be interested. But then as you have people sign up, like Stacy's like, question, okay, my normal income from schools is gone because of COVID. I'm not sure where my income from kids yoga is going to come. I've got this one neighborhood group I'm hoping to do. Well, there's 5 or 6 emails right there. And you could say, hey, who do you know? And like, and you need to be really specific. Like you could say, can you email and CC me? Or like, people need to know how to help you. So a lot of times I'll be like, hey, can you share this? And then someone will just like press share but not say anything. And I'm like, there's no point in you sharing that unless you say something. Oh, thank you, Nicole. I was very willing to go and it was far. I remember like I bookended my week for the week I was supposed to go see Nicole. Like I took off the Thursday, the Friday, and the Monday because I was like, this is going to be so much driving. Oh, and at the time, my car could not go over 50 miles an hour.
So are you saying Wyoming's out of the question then? Huh?
Well, I would come if we filled a whole room of people who wanted to take my class and I could hang out with you and get a good flight. I'm not driving to you.
I'll see you. Well, we actually got snow this week, so we're not driving. Yeah. Well, I was thinking we'd have a snow day on Tuesday because we got like 3-4 inches of snow. So,
oh my gosh.
But yeah, I'll see what I can do though. Okay.
I would love to, honestly, like I got invited to Minnesota this year and I almost went, but she could only guarantee me 10 in the course. And I was like looking at the cost of the flights and the hotel was going to be like $1,000 plus I was going to miss regular work. So it was going to be like $1,700 cost. And I was like, I just can't do that for, $3,000 and give up 4 days of my life. So we do have to like weigh these things. And a lot of times a price tag seems high. Like I once invoiced a Head Start $3,000 for 2 days of training, but I spent 2 months emailing them. I paid somebody 25 hours of labor to help create the content. And I left my family and I went on a train for 4 hours in either direction. I had to rent a house because there were no hotels. I was in a super out there place. And so it was, so even at the end of the day, it sounded like a high bill for 2 days, but I didn't really make that much money. I probably walked away with $1,000. And that's a very high level job that I did. I did a professional development for hundreds of people. That was 4 different professional developments broken up into 8 meetings. It was a very, very like intense thing I did. So you got to charge enough. You really do.
Did they complain about the bill?
No, but she didn't rehire me. So I think that, and this was somebody who took my foundations, said, I have to have you come work with my staff. We had the best time together. But then I think like she realized I was out of her budget. Like, so she got the money for it, but I think that she hesitated to do it again. But she's just now emailing with me again. It's been like 2 years, I think so. But I could not afford to charge less than I did. And I think that's oftentimes we have to ask, like, is this job worth doing? Can I charge what they can afford to pay and I can afford to make? But like, remember what Stephanie said a few weeks ago with her after school, which is on hold. Normally she doesn't make a ton of money, but her 3 kids all have programming that she's not paying out of pocket for. So that is a win because all 3 are getting an enrichment experience and she's doing something she loves and there's a little bit of extra. So we don't always have to make a ton. It's just about the trade-off. Okay, so let's go on. So page 7. Yes, so the vision I had like is kind of where we left off, that I like built this vision around inclusion and representation, and like I wanted to give up saving the world by like teaching teachers. So that's like, and another thing I really cared about was making jobs. Like I made jobs for people. I've had like 25 different people work for me over the past 8 years. Like whether it was a few hours a week or 20 hours a week, it's really cool to be able to support other people. Right now, Ava, who took the class in the spring, works for me, and she's doing my social media. And like, why did I hire her? Ava is one of me. She's one of us, right? She knows everything. She's taught the methodology. She owns all the content. She loves it. She believes in it. So who else would, I've hired a bunch of people who did a very bad job on social media. Why does she do such a good job? Because she gets it. Like I want to bring people in that get it. So now like if I ever hire again, it's going to be like people who took my training. I'm not going to hire a random person off the street because they don't know what I care about the way you guys do. And so like if you are growing and you are going to have a partnership, like me and Jerry had the first year, we spent so much time together co-creating that program. I was super comfortable with her decision making. I was so comfortable with her. She was a very formal planner and I was a very whimsical person, and we both taught each other a lot. And that was valuable. So if you are going to work with people, really that like quality person, someone that you can build a relationship with, that you can trust. If somebody like, so say Anna's program takes off at her school and she's got other teachers interested, they need to sit and observe her class or participate in her class before they can join her as like a co-teacher. So it's really important. And then partnerships too, like some of the things that work well, like B, when she was here, she's a partnership with the library. Those work really well because there's funding. The library gets funding. They also have like a whole bunch of people that they can easily market to. With Stephanie's program too, like they have that Century 21, the school provides the grant, and like it's just, so these partnerships are really great business opportunities. Grants, libraries, sometimes like Lululemon has a kid company. What is their kid company called? Does anyone remember? I used to do stuff with them.
Avia.
Yeah, something like that. So when I first moved to,
They're only online now.
oh, they're only online now. They used to be in Union Square, which is where I lived in New York City when I was in Manhattan. And so I used to go and do events there with them. Partnerships are great because they bring the bodies in for you. They bring the kids in for you. Yeah, so that is, I think that's pretty. Oh, and like one more like word of wisdom. When my school programs grew, I should have hired a teacher manager, and like I should have hired somebody as a like program director to look for new schools and continue to do outreach, because when I got so busy teaching and managing teachers, I didn't have room to do that stuff. And so if you did ever end up growing something, you can have someone work for you for just a few hours a week to take a lot of responsibility off your shoulders. And so that might be something you're like, I'm just starting. Why are you telling me this? Just so you are aware that when you grow, you can get a little bit of help, and then that could give you a lot more room to grow. Okay. My thing's down, I promise. You know, and like now I won't do school assemblies anymore. Like I've told you guys that, like I've learned the things I don't want. I don't like working in middle schools anymore. But I still like, there's certain things I love, and those are the things I'm going to gravitate towards and be the best at. And I think you guys will all find that too. And just knowing like you can do a school program, you can do a Girl Scout program, you can do a yoga studio program, you can do a partnership with an organization, you can get a grant and work, so there's so many avenues, and we're going to look at all of that. And so on page 9 is the first case study we're going to look at. And if you remember the white paper that I sent you, that's for this company. So we're looking at Premier Chess. And Premier Chess is, so I actually I smacked into Premier Chess because I posted in a parent group in my community And I said, I'm looking for one more opportunity to teach a local kids yoga class in Brooklyn. And Evan Rabin, who's the founder or the CEO of Premier Chess, responded. He said, hey, I'm a chess guy. Let's connect. And I was like, what is this? So I thought he was going to try to get me to like send him referrals or like for a fee. So I felt really like, ugh. But it turned out he just wanted to network. He's a master networker. This guy is in like 10 networking groups. He's in the Jewish networking group. He's in BNI. He's in all of it. He had no business, and then he had 14 programs within 2 months. He went from the idea of Premier Chess to being in 14 schools. He emailed every school he could think of, and he sent them the white paper, and 14 responded of like 5,000. Right, so you gotta like really have it in you to go after something like that, which is why we talked about how important relationships are. I did a cold emailing once, and I got like one mean response being like, don't email me. I never did it again. I don't cold email. I don't have the chutzpah for it, but Evan's got the chutzpah. He does networking, and this is his third year of business, and he's worked in 80 schools. How impressive is that? 80.
It says all over the country too, so not just
Florida, Texas, everywhere. You know why else he's all over the country? He does chess tournaments all over the country. So as part of his business growth, he attends the tournaments and he competes. So he's constantly making friends. And whenever somebody has a job they can't fill with their own chess company, they refer to Evan. Evan's got programs everywhere. He works with top level CEOs, right? He's not just doing kids. So for those of you that are also adult yoga teachers, you can make a business that does both. It's really funny when people contact Flow and Grow Kids Yoga to ask for adult programming, which I can do, and a lot of my instructors can, but the name of the business is so pigeonholed. Like it's like kids. So that's like my legal business name is Flow and Grow Education Incorporated. I don't know if any of you knew that. I want to be an education company. So when I send an invoice to a school, they're like, oh, this is an education company, because I want to work with the teachers too. So if it's just kids yoga, it's hard for them to imagine. But all my marketing and all my like street name, is kids yoga. But my legal stuff is education. And so if somebody is like, hey, we're looking for an education enrichment, I fill that. So Evan is the master of networking. This is not for everybody, but I'd say 50% of his work week is networking calls and meetings. And he has referred me business. I have referred him business. He has introduced me to 15 people. He's a very good person to know. And he's killing it. And even though we are in this major recession and people that do school programming like me and Evan, we've lost a lot of our contracts, he still has 6 teachers working. Isn't that impressive? So very proud of him. We talk probably like once a month on the phone. And before the pandemic, I would meet him at networking events at night. He goes to school board meetings in districts that he doesn't live in because he wants to dominate that district. He's been to the Astoria school board meeting 50 times. And guess what? The superintendent introduced him to all the principals. And he is now in Astoria schools. So this might not be for everybody, but it is a very important example to understand that we're talking about relationships. How do you build relationships? You actively build them. He actively builds them. And he has overcome the pandemic. He's still working, right? He ran a virtual camp this summer. He had over 100 kids attend the thing. I don't know if they attended for 1 day or 50 days or how that looked at revenue, but that certainly sounds like business to me, right? And like if he had just stuck with school programming, he would be out of business. So look at how flexible he is. Me too, like the other kids yoga people I know are on unemployment right now because they don't have anything else that they do. But I do trainings. I have my yoga school. I have content. I have Kid Pass. So even though a lot of them are small streams of revenue, I was never without money. I always had something coming in. Evan also has a twice weekly podcast. He interviews people every week. Have you guys noticed I started live streaming people on Facebook like every week? That's because of Evan. He interviews everybody, and the conversations make him so credible. Because as you're talking, you know, spoke to Miss Arizona last week, and I spoke to a doctor of psychology, and I spoke to a New York Times bestselling author, and like, you know, I'm doing this now because I've seen what an impact his thing has been and how impressive it makes him look. He knows 100 people good at business. His business is validated. So that's not something everyone needs to do. But once I started to recognize I was a talented speaker, I realized like I should be doing these conversations too. So I've now been invited to 2 different podcasts 3 times. And I think it may have something to, I don't know. My guess is it has something to do with these conversations I'm having. So he does that, and I got that from him. He also, his newsletters are really good. So I would recommend all of you follow Premier Chess. They're very much to the point. So I'm sure you've seen my newsletters are sprawling and like, it's hard to get to the bottom. His are just like, boom, boom, boom. This. They're very targeted. That's because he does one thing and he focuses on it really well. Whereas like I told you, my pitta vata problem is that I do 100 things and no one can keep up with me, including myself. So follow his newsletter, because you should make a blog or a newsletter, even if you're not planning on growing a business. This is how you build your reputation. His prices are not set. He doesn't have a price. Did you know that? It's all negotiation. Every single call, every single contract. I do not have the chutzpah for that either. I'm just like, this is the price. You can't afford it. Okay, here's 97% off. He doesn't do that, right? Like, so all of our personalities will shape us. I think some people are very good at just saying, this is what it costs. We'll see somebody in another case study who always had a very, like, this is my rate. She never went below that. So he's also aggressively honest. Okay, so he and I had a call set and I forgot to add the Zoom link. And I'm texting him like, look at your email for the Zoom link. And he's like, no, you needed to send it in the invite. You didn't send it, so we're talking on the phone. And next time you need to do better. And then we had a great call, you know, but he's giving real feedback. So it's good to have someone in your corner who's going to like not let you be a BS person. Like, cause I was feeling really overwhelmed. You know, when I went through the whole self-care Saturday thing, how overwhelmed I was, I'm so sorry that was during your tenure with me, but I took on too much. And so I messed up this call with him and he's like, you should not have scheduled it. He just said it to me. Like, I'm like, you're right. So it's good to have examples of people that are honest, that are looking for opportunities, that are flexible. Because kids yoga, especially for you school teachers that may have summers off, it might give you so much flexibility to do something cool in the summer to like, but you can be really entrepreneurial about like how you go after it. So Evan's a great example. Follow him on Facebook, follow his social media, follow his newsletter if you're curious, and let him know I sent you. Okay, so what are some things that Evan did that you would consider doing, if any?
I think I like a bulleted page where it's just, like you said, it's very to the point, like this is what I offer, it's not wordy. And I think I would like that. And it's just creating the websites and everything. My daughter for the longest, who's into this creating website stuff, has been like, Mom, you have so much. You can, and it's just getting past that initial fear of putting yourself out there also that's been holding me back. But I like this very bulleted, the way it looks, it just looks clean.
Yeah. And he's actually, remember what I said about your email use? So Monica sent me an email that she wanted to send to a principal that she knows. And it was like 2 paragraphs. And the first thing I said
It's
is,
very wordy.
no one's going to read this. A principal is so overwhelmed. There's no way he's going to read this. It needs to be like, hi, something about that person, something about what you want to do, a specific time you want to talk, and asking for confirmation. Boom. It's got to be, and Evan taught me that. So go back to your email and make it under four sentences.
Yes, and that's what and it's funny because I was able to do that quickly, and now I'm like, oh, so for whatever reason, I'm struggling with doing that, and the email's still there. But yes, you just pushed me to try to get to that tomorrow.
What you could do is make a 3-sentence email and then add the other thing as an attachment. He doesn't want to read that. And so if he's interested, he can read the attachment. But you can't, I'm so wordy. I sent somebody who keeps coming back to my website to look at the training for the fall. I sent her like 4 paragraphs. I know I need to send her 3 sentences, but I care so much about, I'm just like overthinking it. So I want her to know that I remember her from my website, that I appreciate her coming to my store, that I saw her looking at the training and I was wondering, like, all that stuff. And instead I should have just said 3 sentences. So it's very hard to walk the walk. And so for those of you like me that like to chat it up, it doesn't work in the format of an email.
Okay.
What else? What about like the networking and relationships? What kind of lessons or direct connections can you make from that? Doesn't have to be you get it.
I think it's good to even, start your own networking group with people that you know that are like maybe similar businesses or, or maybe not even similar businesses, but people that you know are also looking to do networking.
Yeah. Has anybody heard of BNI? BNI is a networking. Actually, I just got invited to a new chapter of BNI. It is Business Networking International, and it's 40 people, all from different fields. And you talk about your business every week, and they refer you people. You don't try to sell to those people, but they become your network, and they refer anybody who needs a kit, anybody who needs an education, an enrichment, a yoga thing, they send them to you. It's an investment. It's like $500 a year, but it's worth it because, and like I almost joined the BNI group that starts in September. There's a new group forming I was invited to, but unfortunately with the child care division of labor, I'm on with Charlie then, so I can't join. But I am looking, at this point, I am looking for a networking group because I only know who I know. And without continuing to do this, like I'm at the top of my field, but I can't stay there unless like people won't know I exist unless I'm having these conversations. So it is true. Like you can make your own networking group. I find women's networking groups are really nice, but BNI has a very specific structure to it. They know how Monica and I talked about the short sentence email. You only have 45 seconds to pitch yourself in these meetings because everyone's going to pitch themselves. So if you want to get, and actually like, that's one of the things we're going to do is an elevator pitch. Has anybody heard of an elevator pitch?
I was just going to type that, like your elevator pitch.
Okay, tell us what an elevator pitch is, Becky.
So basically, like I am guilty at the same. Like once upon a time, I wanted to tell you this story. Like everything, you feel like you have to explain everything because of your passion about it, but like you want to give them the baseline of what it is that you're so passionate about with that passion. But so it's enough that they know what it is, but they have to ask more. So with Evan's thing, it's like, it gives you the bang, bang, boom. And you're like, ooh, what about pricing? And if people are really that interested, they're going to ask more questions. They're going to reach out. If they're like, this is shady, this doesn't have X, Y, and Z, well then on to the next. But basically it allows you to just say, this is who I help, this is how I do it. And, or like something along those lines. Mm-hmm. And then people are like, tell me more, or like on to the next. So it's your time. It allows your time to be valuable. And so true interest is there. and for the same for other people, like you're saying, it's hard to cut down the emails and the messages. It's work sometimes.
Yeah. So an elevator pitch I think about is who, what, and why. Like, who do you serve? What do you do? And why do you do it?
Mhm.
Boom, boom, boom. So like my target is teachers and parents, right? So if I want to talk about my teacher training, right? So hi, my name is Laura Hawkeiser. I'm the founder of Flow and Grow Kids Yoga. I work with teachers and parents and yoga teachers, counselors, people like that work with children to teach them the skills of yoga and mindfulness so they can integrate it in the work they're doing or build a career in kids yoga. I do it because I've seen firsthand, blah, 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 you know? So it's like very succinct, very to the point. Now, could I have done that 3 years ago? I probably would have had a like heart attack because of the tendency to be wordy. So let's do something. Let's take 5 minutes. We'll give you a bio break and then you'll have 5 minutes. And I want everybody to come up with your elevator pitch for what you're doing. Do you guys think you could do it? Just who, what, why? And we'll try to keep it under 60 seconds. Sound good? Okay. Okay, so I'll see you in 10 minutes. It is, what time is it? 7:38. So come back at 7:48 and we'll do the elevator pitches. Okay. Now, don't feel intimidated. You don't have to pitch a business that doesn't exist. Just pitch. What I would like to hear is pitching what you want to do. Right? So who, what, and why. Does anyone would like to start? Your goals should be under a minute, but if you need 2, we're all here. We're all love you and listening. Stacy.
Let's go. So my who is my Stacy's Little Yogis. That's my brand name. And my what is I want to teach yoga and mindfulness to young children. And why is because I truly believe the importance of learning the skills that I can offer to children at a very young age can shape and help them better understand themselves and others.
Awesome. Now try it one more time without looking at your paper, from your heart. You can do
it. Stacy's Little Yogis, and what I want to do is I want to teach yoga and mindfulness to young children, and because I truly believe that my skill set and what I can teach young kids would be very helpful for them in their future, and I believe learning it young is a great way to start.
Lovely. I would remove would be and want to because you already are. You're just looking for more opportunities.
Right.
You add the heart of it. But like
Okay.
that conditional feeling, it made it feel like it doesn't exist yet. And this is something you're doing and that you've seen, not that you believe it will make changes, that you're seeing the direct impact. That's the way I would change it.
Okay.
Thank you. You did so well.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Anyone want to have a turn? And I think I saw your hand go up.
Okay, am I unmuted? Okay. Okay, hi, my name is Anna Bechtel. I've been teaching in a school setting for the last 14 years. But before that, I've taught outdoor education. Sorry, my lights just went off. Outdoor ed at camps and nature centers, as well as state museums and wildlife areas. But my next pursuit in education is to be a kids yoga teacher. And what I would like to do with that is get that in the schools and work with particularly elementary schools and teach them the skills and the ways to be mindful about themselves and be better able to handle their emotions, their behaviors, and become the best people that they can be.
Thank you. Oh, and so if you're in a networking group, you can actually in your pitch say, my ideal referral would be, so you could say like, I'm looking for elementary schools in this specific area, you know, so I'm thinking about like Stacy, could have said, I'm looking for preschools and daycare, or, you know, Anna could say, so you can even get specific about who you'd like to serve and be connected to in your elevator pitch if you think the people listening might know people. Otherwise, you can just tell them about yourself. But your pitch was very complete, and that would be the only other thing I would add to it. Awesome. Anyone else want to do theirs?
I'll go for it. So, what was it? Who, what, where? Okay, so who do I serve would be school-age children. What do you do? I would be teaching yoga and mindfulness to children, and why? I believe yoga helps children regulate emotions, as well as gives them a lot of self-esteem that a lot of children need. And I think that would be it. I'm sure I'll expand on it, but that's the gist of it.
That's the gist of it. And what would be your ideal referral?
I think now I would focus on elementary school.
Elementary school. Perfect. 1 second. Okay. Okay, anyone want to go next?
I'll try. I'm a little brain dead, so if it's not the most eloquent thing you've ever heard, forgive me. So I was thinking about, you know, specifically like why I'm doing this class and what I want to do. And, you know, my goal at my school, they don't have, you know, we had the after school yoga that I started, but we don't have a program for elementary and lower middle school. It's only high school that they do yoga, like as part of the school day, you know, as a real class that they take. So I was thinking, you know, this would be my pitch to the head of the lower school or something. So should I mean, I already know her, so should I just pretend, not pretend, but okay. So, hey, Jillian. So, you know, I've been teaching at this school for a while now. And last year, well, we don't have a program. She's actually new, so I can pretend that she doesn't know. So we don't have a program in the elementary school for yoga or the middle school. And last year I started an after school program, and it filled up quite quickly. You know, we had 12 or 10 spots, and we ended up with like 13 kids per class. So I think it's something that the children enjoy doing and that parents want. And I've had several parents ask me, oh, would you teach it during the school day? So, you know, because some kids can't do after school. And so I think that it's something we need at our school. And I would love to, you know, to start this program with you. And you know, I already know a lot of the children and the teachers, so I think it'd be an easy transition. And what was the other thing I was supposed to say? Maybe that's it.
I think you got it. I heard really a lot of good things. You referred to your relationship length at the school, the program that you ran and its popularity, the specific grade levels you've worked with. Did you say, I may have missed this because I also got a private message at that moment. Did you say that you want to create something, or did you
add?
ask?
I said I wanted to, you know, create a new program with her, you know, because we don't have one, and I think it's something that the people want.
Yeah. And then I would say, like, what might be the next steps? Because I think you should either ask for, if you do have a conversation like that, you either have to ask for a meeting, ask her if you can submit a proposal. I would never do a proposal before you have a meeting because you need to see what she's open to. But really great. I think you said it well. And I think because you had a specific person in mind, it was easy to do the talk. So awesome. You want to go, Becky?
Okay. This has been hard just because I'm in such a transition right now. I feel like this has been something I've been so stuck on because what I've done up until this point in yoga and movement has meant so much, and I've poured so much into. So doing this kind of like solidifies a little bit more like that that transition. So I'm having like a week.
We're
But-
feeling it with you and all
Yeah.
the support of you. You don't have to be perfect.
No, I appreciate you guys so much. So what I would love to do is help teens find their confidence in building their own toolbox of skills to work through transitions, to help relieve stress and anxiety, and find better sleep, and then how to use those tools, how and when to pick those things and use them. Basic.
So I think you said a lot of good things specifically about the issues that kids are dealing with and how you think yoga could help. Maybe what would be missing is just I'm looking for opportunities to do this in schools and yoga settings, virtually, letting people have, and of course, if you're having a particular conversation with someone in your community,
Right.
but getting to the, not the heart of what you just want to do, but where you might want to do it or who might you want to be connected to. Those are the things you can get at in these elevator pitches, not just who, what, where, but also like a specific ask if you are leveraging a connection. So like if I were to say that, because right now I'm in the same boat as you, like everything's kind of upended and I'm like, what do I do? Am I going to work in schools? So when administrators that normally contract me reach out and say like, hey, how are you? I will say, I'm great. This is what I'm up to. These are the opportunities I'm looking for. Because I know this year I'm not looking for every week yoga with kids, but I would be interested in professional development with their team to support the teachers. So like you can give a specific ask. And I think other than that, you delivered it really well, really succinctly. Yeah, perfect. Do you want to go, Stephanie?
Yes. So I think I would obviously put this together a little bit better, but to my current principal, and it would be to incorporate yoga and mindfulness into the kids' daily schedule as a special, like as another special besides gym, art, music. I think that yoga and mindfulness should be incorporated into the school day. So I would say, and like I said, I'm just kind of winging here, but I would say something to the effect of, as you know, I've been part of the WCES family for the last 14 years. About 4 years ago, I was fortunate enough to bring yoga and mindfulness into our 21st century after school program. As you know, it's turned into a great success. It's benefited our children immensely. We've had all positive feedback with the teachers. However, all of our students aren't able to stay at the after school program. They have to go home immediately after school. And I think that it would be a tremendous benefit if we can incorporate the yoga and the mindfulness into the school day so all children can have the benefits of it when they're at school.
You need to add data to yours because you're asking a principal in a public school. Your pitch was perfect. Please bring like 3 or 4 data points and then have that conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, principals, public schools, data points.
Mm-hmm.
You can use the ones from your integrating mindfulness. You can find more relevant ones to your specific age group, but I think it's really important to talk about, a reduction in stress or the relationship to stress, the academic performance. And I know like we don't care about the academic performance as a thing on its own. We care about like a holistic thing. The principals do care about academic performance. So
I also bring in like numbers. Like I literally can't fit any more children into my yoga class. Like I'm maxed out in the after school program with children.
exactly.
So I incorporate the amount of students that are coming and how I
and like how many you could serve versus how many you are serving. And those are actually really great in a proposal too, to like put those figures in, like we're currently serving this many. Wouldn't that be so cool if they converted your position? And I know Anna's like, oh, maybe they'll convert my position. That would be very cool if they converted your position.
I'm crossing my fingers. I know that they're really trying to incorporate it more in our school day.
I saw really, really, really positive things. I have never been to a school that is not a private school that has made so much of an initiative and an effort to normalize and incorporate, even just like the stuff that your colleagues are describing that are in the classrooms to have, like things to touch, things to sit on. That's a very big sign that the district is moving in that direction. So it might be the time, especially because Center 21 is donezo this year. You can say, look at that impact that
but now we have the SEL grant, the social emotional learning.
Yeah.
And I just think that that could be incorporated into it, which is how it paid for me to come to this class. It was from the SEL. And then I think that even more so, I would incorporate the COVID aspect. Like, these kids are going through a lot right now. What better time for them to have the benefits of the yoga and mindfulness?
Wouldn't it be cool if they even started it next semester? Ah!
Yeah. Well, I'm doing it. So, I mean, I don't want to keep anybody saying, but I'm starting to do it online during the school day, like for the remote children, the kids who chose to go. So our kids have an option to go remote or hybrid. So like, I'm already planning my schedule. I have to do like an 11 o'clock mindfulness and yoga next week for first grade, and then a second grade one. So they're getting into it a little bit more. So I'm like, why aren't I doing this with all of our grades? You know what I mean? So I just think it would be a good time to throw that in there too. Like,
let Anna know how this conversation goes, because
yeah, definitely.
He needs to do the proof in the pudding year right now, but you've already done your proof in the pudding years. So thank you so much for sharing. Nicole, did you want to do your pitch for us?
Sure. I just sent Laura a message because I've been taking this course kind of selfishly to like just be a better mom, and it just like makes me a better person. But it was like a daydream that it would ever bring in any actual income to me. And then my husband said tonight that he's like thinking about quitting his job. So I was like, ha ha. So I just thought, like, if I were really thinking about it, what would be my easiest transition? And I think it would be like in the community with like rec or the libraries. So this is a little pitch that I just put together. Hi, my name is Nicole Hunter, and I'm a homeschool educator, community volunteer, and town resident. I want to provide youth with tools to grow confidence, focus, and curiosity in learning and understanding themselves and the world around them. My belief is that engaged and supported learners become positive, impactful residents, strengthening the vitality of the community. So trying to think of like, if I'm using, if I was doing it through rec or the library, I'd be using tax dollars probably. So
Well, it sounded really strong. What you said was really powerful. What was missing, I think, notably, is your experience in Outward Bound and your training in kids yoga. And the specific ask would be like, I'm imagining creating a budget where we can create a program in the following location, or like for the following people. I think you need to get more specific about who you want to serve. So like, children is too general. I think the benefits were really clear. That's like the what and why you gave. But I'm missing your background with yoga and mindfulness. I'm missing your background in Upward Bound, which I think really qualify you beyond just homeschool. And I think the rec and library are like institutions you could be connected to. But you need more of like, also, I would like to build a program in conjunction with this, and like, where, would it, who would it be open to? And like, so your who might be missing, open to all students, open to all, so that could be a little more crystallized. I think you're very close and really articulated the thing you want to provide, that's like this intrinsic and also measurable, potentially, outcome.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. That was fun. These were fun. Did anybody sweat a little? No. Okay. Okay, let's see. Is anybody still spotlighted? Okay. So that was fun. And we got through the first case study. There's several more. We still have 10 minutes. I'm kind of tempted to just go to the second case study, which will be really quick. Who has heard of kids yoga stories? Yeah, so if you Google image kids yoga stories is like ubiquitous. So Kids Yoga Stories is founded by Giselle Shardlow. She has these iconic illustrations, very cheap and a lot of free downloadable stuff. It started out as a book that she won some awards for and then turned into this whole big e-commerce thing. She's got like, she sells lesson plans and has tons and tons of books and is kind of just like a content producer. And she's on Teachers Pay Teachers. She's on her website. She's, got 50,000 people on her email list as of 2 years ago. Who knows how many? So if you have 50,000 people on your email list and only 1% convert to a sale, that's a lot of people buying something. That's 50 sales. Because I have 3,000 on my email list. So if 1% converts to a sale, it's not a lot of sales, So just it's sheer numbers game. She's really nailing it. And so your homework for Giselle is just to look to Google search. So like for the last 5 minutes, we'll cut the class, but I want you to look up kids yoga stories. Just Google it if you haven't seen it, and notice her style is her branding. And if you peruse her website just to see how much content she has produced, one thing she does really well that I don't do as well, props to her, is she makes like growth mindset yoga poster or like all of these like ideas. She has so many topics and she just throws random poses together and gives them a mantra that somehow connects them to the idea. But people are crazy over this stuff, and her images are all over Google Image. Like my images are on the first page a lot of the time. Hers are always on the first page. So look up Kids Yoga Stories and her iconic brand. Doesn't mean you have to build a brand or do any of it, but she has content and she's made a big footprint in the field because of just how expansive her fan base is. So I'm going to leave you with that. I love you guys. I'll see you. What day is today? Is today Thursday or Tuesday? So I'll see you. Next week's our last week. Oh, well, after that's done, we'll schedule something a few weeks out where I'll get together. We'll, after I mail you your certificate and your little present, we'll get together and we'll have like a night where we can all chat. So we don't get a lot of closure feelings, like, because I don't want to cram a ceremony into the last day. But what I did with the spring group is we just did a poll. We found a consensus time. And then the people who hadn't finished their videos wanted their certificate for the picture, so they rushed to get it done. So, so yeah, we'll probably do our certificate. I'll say 3 to 4 weeks after we finish, just so I have plenty of time to mail them to you. And if those of you who have not done your videos can reach out to me or make a plan.
I was going to ask, do we graduate if we owe you a video? When do you need them? Like, when's the absolute?
So here's the thing.
I know you're starting another class, so.
It doesn't have to be before that. Ideally, it would be getting
for a friend. Yeah.
Ideally, you would get them in sooner the better, because of course I'm starting the new group in October, but also just because I want to be able to have a ceremony, but I can't. The reason we don't do the ceremony on the last day and just extend it is because I want everybody to have completed their assignments, and I do believe doing at least some of the assignments is really important to help you feel ready. But like I said, we have the flexible format, so you can do all the videos or you can just do some, and you can let me know what else you would be doing. But I still want to get, and you're probably close. Like I bet you've done 2 hours of videos. If you wanted to do 4 and then spend a couple hours on something else, it's totally fine. It's just that getting the videos done really helps. But I talked to somebody from the spring cohort today who did about 5 videos and didn't want to do any more. And she's like, I just feel like I can't. So she and I booked a half an hour to just talk about what she's up to and to talk about her independent study. Because she, you know, we do teach a significant amount during the courses. So technically you're okay. It's just like, she was really ready and you're ready. Like, you don't have to teach to be ready. You've like been teaching. So if you did the 4 hours, I'd be totally fine with you doing something else. But the sooner that, like, I would rather it be, you know, say 2 weeks after we're done. So that way, if we schedule the thing for 3 weeks, you can all like graduate. I mean, you're going to all, I'm not going to let anybody fail. I promise. But I would never do that. I mean, I would do everything in my power, but I am like afraid of getting like audit. Not that I don't think the Yoga Alliance audits or anything, but I'm just like really want to be by the book with this. So, okay, awesome.
I'll sue you if you fail me.
I would never fail you. I would never do that.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
I know.
I
We
don't
would
even have to
take a walk and talk it out.
someone.
Okay, see you guys.
Bye.
Bye.